Warrior Lore. Chapter 3847. Taoist Zhao's Confucian cultivation is indeed extraordinary. Zhu Cheng puts down his teacup and says with a smile, although my Zhu family's clear heart tea is good, without someone like Taoist Xiao who understands the true essence of Confucian cultivation, how can you taste it? Xiao Hua waves his hand and says, fellow immortal Zhu, you flatter me. I only have a feeling occasionally. It's nothing. Compared to your family with a long history, it's far inferior. Alas, how is the current Zhu family still a Confucian family? Zhu Cheng bitterly smiles and shakes his head. Then, as if he has thought of something, he stands up and says respectfully, Taoist Xiao, please come this way. Oh? Xiao Hua is slightly surprised. He follows Zhu Cheng to the hall next door. This is also a hall, but it's slightly smaller than the previous one. This hall is even more simple and crude, with only one incense burner table. On the wall behind the incense burner table, in the same position as the hall, but a bit lower, there is also a portrait of Xiao Hua who is standing with his hands behind his back. Xiao Hua in the portrait is vivid and lifelike. His eyes are filled with determination and compassion. The Taoist robe he is wearing is the one he was wearing when he saved Zhu Cheng that day. When Xiao Hua sees this, he immediately understands what Zhu Cheng wants to do. Sure enough, Zhu Cheng takes out a rather old-looking red chair and respectfully places it in front of the incense burner table. He says softly, Benefactor, I greeted you before to welcome you. Now, I would like to invite you to take a seat. My family would like to thank you for your kindness. That's inappropriate. Xiao Hua waves his hand and says, I didn't mean to save you. Moreover, fellow immortal also paid me back that day. After I accept it, we are even. Now, there is no need to make such a big fuss. Zhu Cheng says with a smile, Benefactor is wrong. That day, Benefactor saved me and a dozen of my family members. I used the Zhu family's ancestral treasure to repay you. On one hand, I was really grateful at that time and wanted to give the best thing of my Zhu family to Benefactor. On the other hand, to be honest, my Zhu family has been dragged down for tens of thousands of years because of that treasure. I was tortured in prison, so I also wanted to leave and throw it away. Giving it to Benefactor is really a bit of a misfortune. Thinking about it, I feel very guilty. However, fortunately, it seems that Benefactor didn't feel burdened because of it. I feel a bit relieved. Indeed. Hearing Zhu Cheng's words, Xiao Hua also felt a bit strange and asked, This Xiao has never met anyone from a scholarly family who has come to ask about this item. Since your Zhu family has been forced by other families, why haven't they come to this Xiao? Zhu Cheng thought for a moment and smiled bitterly. Maybe they don't believe the authenticity of the news. Or perhaps their benefactor's whereabouts were uncertain and they couldn't find him in a short time. Or perhaps they just don't want this thing to fall into the hands of my Zhu clan. As for the Dao sect, they don't care? Yes, of course. Xiao Hua nodded slightly. After rescuing Li Xiang from the Copper Pillar State, he hadn't stayed in the Black Wind Ridge for long. Later, the Black Wind Ridge was flattened by Sun Jian's troops, and those scholarly families couldn't find any traces of him. Of course, it was more likely that they did not believe the news and did not believe in the existence of the enlightenment of heavenly writing. Otherwise, they would have followed Duanmu Liangsheng to the Misty Mountain Maze formation. Of course, this is nothing. Zhu Cheng said solemnly. What I want to thank our benefactor the most is that you lifted the curse of my Zhu clan. Oh, I understand. Xiao Hua nodded and smiled. So fellow immortal Zhu is here for this. That's right. Zhu Cheng said respectfully. Compared to the grace of being saved by our benefactor, this grace is completely beneficial to my Zhu clan's descendants. If we don't enshrine our benefactor's portrait, if we don't pay our respects to our benefactor, my Zhu clan won't have the face to exist in this world. Forget it. Xiao Hua nodded. If I refuse again, I'll be hypocritical. Benefactor, please take a seat. Zhu Cheng respectfully invited Xiao Hua to sit. Then, everyone knelt at Xiao Hua's feet according to their status. Not only that, but in a moment, the Zhu clan's descendants also came forward and knelt down to kowtow to Xiao Hua to show their gratitude for breaking the curse. Although everyone in the Zhu clan had to thank Xiao Hua, the Zhu clan was indeed in decline. In less than an hour, Everyone had finished paying their respects. Then, Zhu Cheng invited Xiao Hua to take a seat in the hall. What surprised Xiao Hua was that Zhu Xiang didn't appear. The old man who was looking for Yu Zhongquan also didn't come back. After Xiao Hua sat down again, Zhu Cheng poured tea for him and asked curiously, "Actually, there's something I don't understand. I'd like to ask our benefactor." "Hee, do you want to ask me how I knew that the Zhu clan's descendants were cursed?" Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Indeed." Zhu Cheng nodded. "Where the curse of my Zhu clan came from and when it came from, even I don't know. What's more, about the curse of my Zhu clan, my ancestors never told anyone about it. How did you know? Moreover, this curse was extremely insidious. My Zhu clan tried everything to break it, but couldn't. All the men's cultivation was restricted, and all the women suffered. Our benefactor saved my Zhu clan from the abyss of suffering with just a few medicinal pills. I won't hide it from our benefactor. Perhaps I won't be able to see the rise of the Zhu clan in my lifetime, but without the curse, my Zhu clan will return to the top of the list of scholarly families sooner or later. How did our benefactor get such a miraculous medicinal pill?" "Haha," Xiao Hua laughed. He looked into Zhu Cheng's eyes and said word by word, "Perhaps you'll know about this in the future. However, at this time, forgive me for not being able to speak frankly." "Hee, it doesn't matter," Zhu Cheng said with a smile. "No matter what, our benefactor is our Zhu clan's benefactor. It doesn't matter whether I know or not." While they were talking, an indescribable cold wind suddenly blew in from outside the hall. Not to mention the other Zhu clan disciples in the hall. Even Zhu Cheng trembled and raised his head to look outside. However, after a short while, the cold wind passed and everything returned to normal. There wasn't anything particularly strange about it. Zhu Cheng's complexion returned to normal. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Fellow immortal Zhu, what's going on with Wuhan County? The ghost that the old man spoke of, what's going on?" Hearing Xiao Hua ask about Wuyuan County, Zhu Cheng's face became sad. He said in a low voice, "I'm also very clear about the situation in Wuyuan County. Not only Wuyuan County, but Jinghua County and Fancheng County had also become ghost towns. Many people had starved to death in this disaster, and there were even more people who had committed inhumane acts in order to survive. For example, cannibalism could be found everywhere. Alas, not to mention these three counties, even the entire Fengxiang country is covered in disasters. Even if we're cultivators, it's extremely difficult to fight against the heavens. The Immortal Palace is the head of the Confucian cultivators in the hidden Immortal Continent. In these past few years, the Immortal Emperor has repeatedly issued immortal decrees, ordering the officials of the Rain tribe to rain everywhere to quell the disasters. However, the promised favorable weather has never appeared. Of course, when Benefactor mentioned Wuyuan County, I also feel ashamed. Wuyuan County is the foundation of my Zhu clan. This Zhu clan manor used to be the pride of Wuyuan County. Unfortunately, the current Zhu clan is far from the previous Zhu clan. Even if I want to help the people of Wuyuan County, I don't have the strength to spare. When Benefactor came to my Zhu clan manor, you must have already seen the barrier blocking the main road. In fact, at the very beginning, when the disaster just started, I often gave away food at the manor. However, in the end, not only did my Zhu clan run out of food, I was also powerless to deal with the vagrants attacking my Zhu clan manor. Therefore, I had no choice but to use this method. Xiao Hua looked at Zhu Cheng and raised his hand with a smile. He took out a chinkuan pouch and handed it to Zhu Cheng, saying, "In that case, these are for you. Can you tell the truth?" "Ah, this much?" Zhu Cheng knew that Xiao Hua had food in his hands. However, when he received the chinkuan pouch, his expression changed greatly. Just as he said, cultivators have great magical abilities and boundless magic power. However, to be able to make so much food appear out of thin air has already surpassed the scope of magic power. Xiao Hua retracted his smile, narrowed his eyes, and lightly said, "This amount of food is enough to solve the disaster in Wuhan County. This Xiao's strength alone is insufficient, so it is difficult for me to distribute it fairly. I presume that Zhu family is much more skillful than this Xiao. This matter will be left to Zhu family." "Yes, I understand." I thank Taoist Xiao for his great kindness on behalf of all the people of Wuyuan County. Zhu Cheng hastily stood up and saluted Xiaohua again. Xiaohua's face didn't have much of a smile. When Zhu Cheng stood up, he said indifferently, Zhu Cheng, you're really too polite today. However, if you really treat me as your benefactor, why are you hiding something from me? Benefactor? Zhu Cheng's face revealed an awkward expression. He was still somewhat hesitant. Xiaohua sighed and said, when I came here, I knew that Zhu clan was the master. Therefore, I respected Zhu clan very much and didn't release my divine sense to investigate. If fellow Taoist Zhu doesn't want to tell me, do you want me to investigate it myself? Big brother. Just when Zhu Cheng was hesitating whether or not to speak, an untimely voice came from outside. Soon after, the old man who flew away to find Yu Zhongquan flew back. As soon as he landed, he hastily shouted, Jin he, however, when he saw Xiaohua sitting on the seat of honor, he also had some misgivings. He looked at Zhu Cheng and wanted to send a sound transmission, but he didn't dare. Speak. Xiaohua said coldly, unless you don't speak. Even if you send a sound transmission, I can still hear it. Speak. Zhu Cheng waved his hand and helplessly ordered. Taoist Xiao. The old man hastily said, the Yu Zhongquan you're looking for should have been invited by Jin several months ago. He came from Yifeng country to our Zhu clan manor. I've already asked the servants who take care of Jin daily life. When he heard that Yu Zhongquan had already been in Zhu clan manor for several months and he didn't know, Zhu Cheng's face became somewhat unsightly. However, the old man's next words shocked him greatly. At this time, Yu Zhongquan and more than 10 other young juniors, under Jin lead, have already entered the Yuan Ghost Cave. Ah, Zhu Cheng exclaimed. You didn't catch up? Do you want to know more exciting developments in the legend of the Cultivation God? Open WeChat now, click the plus sign at the top right, choose to add your friends, add your public account, search for Kitty Ann's Hongwen Wang, and follow the public account. You won't miss any new updates. -13. Chapter 38:48. Little brother heard the news from little servant Jean, and immediately flew to Yuan Ghost Cave to catch up with them before they entered. But when little brother released my divine sense, where was their trace? Little brother was afraid that my divine sense was wrong. So I rushed to the ghost cave, but still couldn't find them. That old man hurriedly replied, Are you sure they have already entered? Zhu Cheng asked somewhat anxiously. After all, Zhu Xiang was his son, and Xiaohua was looking for Yu Zhongquan. Little brother can't be too sure. That old man hesitated and said, After all, today is the 15th of July. Little brother can't get too close to the ghost cave. Oh, why is it the 15th of July again? Xiaohua, who was listening carefully at the side, was stunned. Previously, when Xiaohua met Huang Yi at Tianmen Mountain, it was the ghost festival on the 15th of July. Now that he arrived at Hidden Immortal Continent, he met Huang Yi's reincarnation, Chang Yuan. He just accepted Chang Yuan as his disciple, and now it was the ghost festival. Even though Zhu Cheng had yet to reveal the truth, Xiaohua already had a feeling that this matter was definitely related to the malicious ghosts and wandering souls. But this time the one involved is Yu Zhongquan. 15th of July. While Xiaohua was stunned, Zhu Cheng's face also turned extremely pale. He clenched his fists and said angrily, This unfilial son. Since he knew that today is the ghost festival, how could he rashly enter Yuan Ghost Cave? Isn't this courting death? Big brother. That old man said in a low voice, If you want to seal the ghost cave, you can only use the blood essence of my Zhu family's son during the ghost festival. Even I don't dare to do this kind of thing. How can he cultivate? Although Zhu Cheng called him an unfilial son, he's still worried about Zhu Xiang's safety. Isn't this all because of Big Brother? That old man stole a glance at Zhu Cheng and muttered in a low voice, Fellow immortal Zhu, at this time, you still don't want to tell the truth? Xiaohua said indifferently, If so, don't blame me for not caring anymore. AI, benefactor. Zhu Cheng bowed and said, It's not that I don't dare to tell benefactor the truth. Benefactor is a Taoist cultivator, although you are proficient in Confucian cultivation, but this matter involves ghosts of the netherworld. which is not something ordinary cultivators can deal with. I don't want to drag Benefactor into this trouble. Oh, so this Xiao has wronged you. Seeing Zhu Cheng's sincerity, Xiaohua nodded and said, however, since this Xiao has come here because of Yu Zhongquan, this matter is already related to this Xiao. Unless this Xiao leaves and no longer cares about Yu Zhongquan's life or death, do you think this Xiao will not get involved? Wu. Just as Zhu Cheng was about to speak again, a chilly wind blew in the hall again. Even the night sky outside the hall was filled with strange hissing sounds. Ghost Parade. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked in a low voice. That's right. If today is the 15th of July, this is the precursor to the 100 Ghosts Parade. Zhu Cheng smiled bitterly. But it's not time yet. The ghosts are still stirring in the Ghost Cave. See, the Ghost Cave is near the Zhu clan village? Then the disaster in Wuyuan County. Is it related to the Ghost Cave? Xiaohua suddenly realized and asked while sucking in a breath of cold air. Zhu Cheng looked at Xiaohua and bit his lips. He first nodded, then shook his head and said, Daoist Xiao, the disaster in Fengxiang country is similar to the nearby countries. The disaster in Wuyuan County is also similar to the nearby counties. It is indeed a bit far-fetched to say that the disaster in Wuyuan County is related to the Ghost Cave. However, I don't know what Daoist Xiao saw in Wuyuan County, but the filth in the dark is much more serious than the other places. In particular, the Yin energy in Wuyuan County is heavy. Some things that are hard for ordinary people to understand are often found. These should be related to the Ghost Cave. Do the people in Wuyuan County know? Xiaohua's eyes narrowed. He looked at the night sky outside the hall and asked thoughtfully. Zhu Cheng shook his head. How could I dare to let them know? Although the people in Wuyuan County are ordinary people, they are still people. They should have the right to know. Xiaohua said word by word, you shouldn't hide it from them. But, Zhu Cheng said awkwardly, these ghost caves need the yang energy of living people to suppress them. If the people in Wuyuan County knew about this, wouldn't Wuyuan County be empty? Without the yang energy, the ghost cave will be even more destructive. My Zhu clan village won't be able to. At this point, Zhu Cheng suddenly realized something and hurriedly shut his mouth. Xiaohua's expression slightly changed. He withdrew his gaze from the night sky and stared at Zhu Cheng. Fellow Taoist Zhu, your Zhu clan has always been guarding this place. Could it be that you are guarding the ghost cave? Zhu Cheng did not reply. Instead, he raised his head and looked at the portrait of Zhu Shi. After half a cup of tea's time, the dozen or so Zhu clan disciples behind Zhu Cheng, who were qualified to enter the hall, lowered their heads and stared at the ground. They appeared to be somewhat sorrowful and aggrieved, but there was more pride in their eyes. That's right, Zhu Cheng said. Our Zhu clan's ancestors taught us that this matter is our Zhu clan's secret. Zhu clan's disciples must never leak it out. Now that Benefactor has given our Zhu clan a new lease on life, you are not an outsider. Since Benefactor has seen through it, this humble one will not go against the ancestors' teachings. This Xiao understands. You are the backbone of Confucian cultivators. You are the support of the hidden, immortal continent. Xiaohua sighed. Only by silently contributing and silently shouldering the burden can the human race of the hidden, immortal continent prosper. Thank you for your hard work. Benefactor is too kind. Zhu Cheng's face blushed. He shook his head and said, although our Zhu clan's ancestors left behind instructions for our Zhu clan's descendants to guard the Zhu clan village for generations. But the curse of our Zhu clan for generations can only be alleviated by relying on the Yin energy of this ghost cave. Therefore, even if our Zhu clan's descendants want to leave the Zhu clan village, they can't. I won't hide it from Benefactor. That day, when the king of the Bronze Pillar State captured my Zhu clan, this humble one also had the will to die. I simply don't want to fall into this burden left behind by our ancestors. This burden is not something that ordinary people can imagine. Looking at Zhu Cheng's slightly aged appearance, Xiaohua suddenly understood the pain in this old man's heart. This pain is not only the physical pain, but also the pain of the curse. More importantly, it is the pain of the responsibility in the heart. The responsibility that cannot be spoken by others and is harmed by others. If the Zhu clan was rejected by the curse and Confucian cultivator aristocratic family, They could naturally give up the mission of guarding the ghost cave and let the yin energy of the ghost cave spread, turning Wuyuan County and even Fengxiang country into a ghost region. However, the Zhu clan chose to endure the humiliation. Moreover, this humiliation has been endured for thousands of years. This pain, if not for the great Confucian aristocratic family that produced sage Zhu, how could they bear it? Suddenly, Xiaohua seemed to have thought of something. He hurriedly stood up and said, Zhu Cheng, since Zhu Xiang has already fallen into the ghost cave, why are you still not worried? Previously, you said that only the blood essence of the Zhu clan's descendant can seal the ghost cave. What does this mean? Benefactor, everything is too late. A trace of redness appeared on Zhu Cheng's face. He shook his head and said, the yin energy of the ghost cave is extremely heavy. Every 100 years, it must be sealed once. And this seal's array is the blood essence of my Zhu clan's descendant. And the most glorious mission of my Zhu clan's successive patriarchs is to seal this ghost cave, using their own flesh and blood to block this ghost cave that can swallow the hidden immortal continent. Zhu Cheng's words once again shook Xiaohua's heart. What he saw today was really beyond his expectations. Every time a thin veil was removed from the Zhu clan's matters, it would shock him. Xiang is my Zhu clan's descendant. Although he is not the patriarch, as long as he enters the ghost cave, he will immediately be attracted by the seal inside the ghost cave. Other than using his life to trigger the seal, there is no other outcome. Even if Taoist master rushes to the ghost cave now, he will not be able to change this outcome. Zhu Cheng smiled bitterly again and said, this outcome. I did not completely explain it to Xiang. I only vaguely told him some things. I only wanted him to know that his father's life is not long. He must change his shortcomings and be prepared to take over the Zhu clan's patriarch position and shoulder the heavy burden of the Zhu clan's ancestral teachings. However, he must have misunderstood and thought that as long as the ghost cave seal was sealed, Yu Zhongquan and the other young cultivators were also invited by him to reinforce the seal, right? Sigh. Hearing this, how could Xiaohua not understand the indecisive Zhu Xiang's filial piety? He originally wanted to blame Zhu Xiang, but facing this kind of filial piety, how could he still open his mouth? Zhu Cheng. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, follow this Xiao, benefactor, this is... Zhu Cheng was somewhat puzzled. He followed a few steps and asked. At this time, Xiaohua had already walked out of the hall. He squinted his eyes and looked at the full moon that poked its head out from behind the dark clouds in the sky. He said indifferently, since this Xiao encountered this matter, how can I not help? Moreover, Yu Zhongquan is currently in the ghost cave. This Xiao has no choice but to go and take a look. Seeing this, Zhu Cheng said anxiously, benefactor, you don't understand. This matter is far from what benefactor's current divine ability can. This Xiao understands very well. Xiao Hua's figure flew into the air and said loudly, take this Xiao to the ghost cave. Woo! Almost at the same time as Xiao Hua, there seemed to be someone in the distance who was screaming at the top of his voice. Moreover, this scream spread far and wide in the night sky. How can this be? Zhu Cheng's face turned pale. Clouds also appeared under his feet, and his figure rushed into the sky. Purple light and cloud threads flashed between his eyes. Xiaohua was the first to fly into the air. His divine sense looked towards the source of the sound, but the strange thing was, other than ordinary mountain rocks and trees, he couldn't see anything strange at all with his divine sense. When he looked at Zhu Cheng again, not only was his face deathly pale, his lips were also trembling, as if he had seen something inconceivable. Xiaohua looked at Zhu Cheng's flashing purple light. In his mind, he couldn't help but think of what he saw in the Tianmen mountain. He knew that Taoist divine sense had no effect on ghosts. Therefore, he used his hand to point at the space between his eyebrows and softly said, Ji. He opened his Dharma eye and used the Buddhist sect's heavenly eye. See, when Xiaohua saw everything clearly, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air again. -13. Chapter 3849. Under the night sky, wisps of netherworld qi filled the entire area. Within the blood-colored netherworld qi, The faint wails of ghosts and howls of wolves were gradually being emitted. The night wind that was blowing against his face was now gradually filled with the color of blood. Looking at the faint blood color again, the entire Zhu clan manor was shrouded in a layer of faint purple clouds. The moment the blood color touched the purple clouds, it immediately disappeared without a trace. Looks like the Zhu clan's ancestors did indeed make extremely thorough preparations. Xiao Hua swept a glance at the Zhu clan manor, then raised his eyes towards the source of the strange sound. Several hundred kilometers away, the outline of a blood-colored pillar of qi that soared into the sky gradually appeared. After a short moment, that outline became increasingly clear. It was very clear that the surrounding netherworld wind was blowing out from that pillar of qi. Zhu Cheng, Xiao Hua pointed with his finger and said, "That's the Netherwang Ghost Cave? Why is the netherworld in energy so heavy?" "Ah, Taoist master? How can you see the Yin energy?" The purple clouds in Zhu Cheng's eyes quickly retracted. He looked at Xiao Hua and asked in astonishment. Xiao Hua said disapprovingly, "My Dao sect's divine abilities are profound and unfathomable. It's not something that a Confucian cultivator like you can understand. This Xiao still has many such methods." Yes. A trace of joy appeared in Zhu Cheng's eyes. "My Zhu clan's clear sight technique is different from the clear sight techniques practiced by other Confucian cultivators. It can clearly see in energy and otherworldly items. I didn't expect Benefactor to also have such a divine ability. Then the Phoenix Soaring Empire's once in 10,000 years disaster might be saved." Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart unconsciously thumped. He said in astonishment, "Fellow Taoist Jew, what do you mean? How did the ordinary ghost parade suddenly rise to a once-in-10,000 years level?" Zhu Cheng pointed at the distant pillar of Yin energy that soared into the sky and said somewhat fearfully, "That place isn't the Netherwang Ghost Cave that my Zhu clan guards." "What? You're saying that place isn't the Netherwang Ghost Cave that you know of?" Xiao Hua was even more shocked. Could it be that Wuyuan County has other ghost caves? That place isn't Wuyuan County. Zhu Cheng's teeth were somewhat chattering. That place is Jingwei County. Wu. Right at this moment, behind Zhu Cheng and Xiao Hua, another strange hiss sounded out, and it was exactly the same as before. Zhu Cheng and Xiao Hua were greatly alarmed. The two of them once again executed their divine abilities to investigate. Sure enough, under the moonlight, another blood-colored pillar of qi that seemed to reach the heavens emerged from the ground and pierced through the pitch-black night sky. "Taoist Master Xiao," Zhu Cheng said anxiously, "my cultivation is limited, so I can't see clearly. Did you see the Yin Qi? Is there anything else?" Xiao Hua sucked in a deep breath, nodded, and said, "That's right, this Xiao saw it. It's a straight energy pillar." A pillar of air? Zhu Cheng was taken aback again, but then he smiled bitterly and said, "I can only see the Yin Qi gushing out, but not the Qi pillar. Looks like Taoist Zhao's cultivation has long since surpassed my expectations." "Is that your Zhu family's Yuwang Ghost Cave?" How could Xiao Hua think of concealing his cultivation at this time? He hastily asked. Zhu Cheng shook his head once more. "I'm sorry to disappoint you. That place isn't the Netherwang Ghost Cave either. It's in the direction of Fancheng County. Just how many ghost caves are there? How come ghost caves have appeared in Fancheng County, Jingwei County, and Wuyuan County?" Xiao Hua said anxiously, "Moreover, if these ghost caves are all opened, what kind of disaster will there be? What is the 10,000-year disaster you're talking about? Forget it." Seeing this situation, Xiao Hua already knew that the situation was urgent. He hastily shouted, "Now is not the time to investigate these reasons. Quickly take this Xiao to the Yuwang Ghost Cave, guarded by your Zhu family. Perhaps Zhu Xiang and Yu Zhongquan will still have a chance to survive." Okay. Zhu Cheng naturally didn't want anything to happen to his child. As long as there is a chance of survival, he is willing to fight for it. After saying that, Zhu Cheng flew up into the air and headed in a certain direction. The two of them flew for more than 100 miles, when Zhu Cheng's figure suddenly stopped in midair. "We'll be there soon." Zhu Cheng's hands trembled slightly. Moreover, This one has already sensed the changes in the restriction inside the Yuan Ghost Cave. The Yin Qi tonight is really powerful. Even with little Yan's blood essence, I'm afraid this ghost cave will not be able to be sealed. Taoist Master Xiao, let's hurry up a bit. Perhaps this one's blood essence will be of use. Are you sure? Xiao Hua looked ahead. Among the mountains, there was a valley with a radius of several miles. This valley was completely barren. Through Xiao Hua's heaven's eye, there were wisps of netherworld wind blowing out from inside. Standing high above the mountain peak, the valley was like a fierce ghost opening its mouth, stretching straight into the night sky. Zhu Cheng pointed his finger and said, "This is the Yuan Ghost Cave." Xiao Hua looked at the valley that was several li wide, and a thoughtful expression appeared in his eyes. Previously, he had taken it for granted that the ghost cave was just a cave, but when he thought about it, that ghost didn't have a physical body, so why would it need a cave? Taoist Master Xiao. A blush appeared on Zhu Cheng's forehead. He said in a low voice, "Follow this one in." You. In Xiao Hua's eyes, he could see Zhu Cheng's qi and blood surging all over his body, like a layer of blood mist covering the surface of his body. Xiao Hua knew that the restriction inside the ghost cave had a great influence on Zhu Cheng, so he hesitated for a moment before saying, "This Xiao knows that your blood essence is useful, but in the current situation, Zhu Xiang has already entered the ghost cave. Your Zhu family only has your blood essence left. If you also die here, in the future, if there are any movements in the ghost cave, who will guard it?" This one. Zhu Cheng bit his lip and said in a low voice, "This one has a young son. This one should be able to." Oh? Without waiting for Zhu Cheng to finish, Xiao Hua couldn't help but be surprised. Zhu Cheng was a bit embarrassed and said, "Little Yin is not of great use. This one has to think of another way. Little Yan's actions may be related to some of this one's ideas. Forget it." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "You should go back. Your blood essence is useful, but now it seems that the sealing of a single ghost cave can't stop it. In particular, your young son is still young and still needs your guidance. The responsibility of guarding the ghost cave is great. The Zhu family can't be without a descendant. Leave this matter to this one." This. Zhu Cheng was a bit hesitant. "Go quickly." As Xiao Hua spoke, he released his divine sense and grabbed Zhu Cheng. Woo! He sent Zhu Cheng dozens of li away. Taoist. Zhu Cheng involuntarily fell from the sky. He looked in the direction of the ghost cave with some shock. He fiercely stamped his foot and flew in the direction of the Zhu family village. But when he saw the left side of the Zhu family village, Zhu Cheng's gaze fell on a 100-year-old ancient willow on the mountain ridge in the night. His figure instantly froze on the spot. The scene of Zhu Xiang climbing on the willow in the past drowned his thoughts like a tide. Xiao Hua sent Zhu Cheng away. He looked up at the increasingly dense netherworld energy in the air, and his mind entered the space. Green-robed fellow Taoist. Where are you? Jade Archive Xiao Hua appeared in the space and immediately called out. Green-robed Xiao Hua's figure flashed. He cupped his hands and said, "Does fellow Taoist Jade Archive have any orders?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua looked at green-robed Xiao Hua with starlight flickering in his eyes. Green-robed Xiao Hua immediately understood what Jade Archive Xiao Hua was thinking. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist is mistaken. This is netherworld energy. I am just a nascent soul cultivator. How can I resist it? Fellow Taoist should think of another way?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, "I can naturally protect the people of Wuwen County, but I want to explore the ghost cave now. I can't split myself. Although other fellow Taoists also have divine abilities, or even better than yours. But now, after all, only fellow Taoist can leave I. Fellow Taoist's nascent soul has now entered the spirit severing stage. Of course, you can leave your body. However, I am not the only one who can control a nascent soul, right? I still have more than 10,000 disciples in my hands to teach. You can't just watch I fall into an irrecoverable situation and let these disciples have no one to rely on." Green-robed Xiao Hua was still unwilling. He blinked his eyes and argued. Jade Archive Xiao Hua helplessly looked at green-robed Xiao Hua and sighed. "I know that going to Wuwen County this time is indeed dangerous, but we can't just watch these innocent people die in the ghost cave, right? Even if other fellow Taoists can control a nascent soul, how can they be as familiar as fellow Taoist? Besides, only fellow Taoist is proficient in the innate divine restriction Tao. If fellow Taoist doesn't go, who else can go? Alas! Green-robed Xiaohua sighed. The vicissitudes of life in his mouth were very vivid. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have comprehended so many cultivation techniques. Green-robed fellow Taoist. Jade Archive Xiaohua said word by word. The more you comprehend, the more you gain. The heavier the burden on your shoulders. Moreover, fellow Taoists taking risks today will also be the fruits of your labor in the future. Although I can force fellow Taoist to go, I know that fellow Taoist already has his own ideas. I still want fellow Taoist to decide for himself. Green-robed Xiaohua's eyes also flashed with starlight. However, after a moment, he already understood the cause and effect. He immediately nodded and said, I understand. Fellow Taoist can hand over the spirit fire, Kunlun mirror, and other magic treasures to I. I will go to Wuyuan County to set up the formation. If possible, I also want to set up defenses in the few nearby towns. The innate divine restriction Pleiades devil-devouring immortal formation should be of some use. All right, I'll leave this matter to fellow Taoist. Save as many as you can. This is good karma. It's beneficial to both you and me. Jade Archive Xiaohua was overjoyed. He handed over everything to green-robed Xiaohua and then brought green-robed Xiaohua out of the space. Green-robed Xiaohua entered his lower dantian and controlled his formless nascent soul to fly out. When he saw the surging netherworld chi, he activated his escape technique and rushed into the distance. After arranging these things, Xiaohua opened his illusion breaker eyes. His eyes flashed with a faint green light as he carefully observed. This ghost cave was indeed different from the surrounding mountain ridges. Wisps of netherworld chi floated out like smoke in an area of several li. It really was like a huge cave. Xiaohua activated his magic power and looked into the depths of the ghost cave. Although Xiaohua's current cultivation hadn't reached the stage where he could explore the netherworld, several thousand zhang was nothing difficult. -13. Chapter 3850. Xiaohua couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice when he saw thousands of feet below the ghost cave. His figure flashed, and a yellow light flashed. Xiaohua's figure had already disappeared from his original position. He had charged into the ghost cave. Earth escape art was the earliest escape art of 5 elements that Xiaohua cultivated. Now, it had reached a high level, and he didn't need to rely on earth element items. He could use it as long as there was earth element energy in the air. Xiaohua exerted the earth escape art and rushed underground. His speed was not much slower than when he used the wind escape art in the air. The nether blood threads emitted from the ghost cave were different from the nether wind from before. When the blood threads wrapped around Xiaohua's body, they quickly corroded his protective golden light, and his Taoist robe was already in tatters. However, when these threads of blood that ordinary cultivators feared like tigers landed on Xiaohua's body, they could only emit sizzling sounds. On Xiaohua's skin, strands of strange patterns appeared. These patterns flashed and disappeared, unable to invade his body. Something's not right. This doesn't seem to be a simple nether wind. Xiaohua had encountered the nether wind and nether blood sea in Netherworld and Million Ming Mountains, so he was not unfamiliar with these blood threads. When these blood threads landed on his body, he immediately felt something was wrong. These blood threads contain a deathly stillness, an aura that can kill all living things. This is the aura of death. No matter if it was the netherworld in the gate of the Tao, the hell in the mouth of the Buddhist sect, or even the netherworld in the mouth of Confucian cultivators, all of them were extremely mysterious. No one knew the details behind them, and the reason for this was the aura of death. No matter how high a cultivator's cultivation base was, they were all living things with vitality. They couldn't go deep into the netherworld, which was filled with the aura of death, and couldn't use their divine abilities in the hell. Even the soul cultivators of Million Ming Mountains, who claimed to be the descendants of Hutu Great God, didn't dare to touch the nether blood sea. If it's just the nether wind, it's fine. But if this aura of death rushes out, with the size of hidden immortal continent, I'm afraid it will kill countless living things. Xiao Hua was secretly worried in his heart as he moved underground. However, he immediately felt relieved. The netherworld chi that was spouted out from the two ghost caves didn't have any deathly chi. It wasn't that there wasn't any deathly chi inside, but it was extremely diluted by the boundless chi of heaven and earth on the hidden immortal continent. So much so that even with Xiao Hua's cultivation, he didn't notice it. Although the death chi emitted from the ghost cave Yuang, which was guarded by the Zhu family, was much more than the other ghost caves, it was nothing compared to the chi of heaven and earth. However, if it's so simple, Xiao Hua was once again puzzled. Why would the Zhu clan's ancestors lay down a restriction here, and even let the successive generations of the Zhu clan's descendants guard the ghost cave? Looking into the depths of the ghost cave, several thousand feet underground, there was a flying shuttle that was less than 100 feet in size. It was flashing with yellow clouds as it stopped at the bottom. About 1,000 feet below the flying shuttle, a thick layer of bloody mist was rolling violently. Loud sounds like a tsunami were emitted from within the mist. The range of this mist was extremely large, perhaps dozens of miles. Above the mist, there were countless armor inscriptions condensed into long strips that were piled up together. These long strips were filled with vast crystal threads. As the crystal threads flashed, there were indescribable visions. Some were the warnings of saints, some were the recitations of children, some were the images of immortal palaces, some were the images of mountains and rivers, and so on. Moreover, as the crystal threads flashed, each strip emitted an unparalleled will and aura of righteousness and perseverance. These auras and wills combined together to form a huge origin formation. This origin formation imprisoned the mist underground. What was special was that under the origin formation, there was a thin layer of Buddhist light. This Buddhist light was extremely obscure and was concealed by the clouds of the armor inscriptions. If one didn't have a Buddhist divine ability, it would be extremely difficult to detect. Before the layers of mist could come into contact with the long strips of the armor inscriptions, they were immediately melted by the Buddhist light. However, as the fog rolled more and more violently, the Buddha's light was almost drowned out. The blood-colored surface undulated up and down greatly, and its strength was also unparalleled. There were faintly visible gaps between the long strips that were originally composed of rules. Strands and strands of netherworld blood seeped out from these gaps and rushed into the ghost cave. Moreover, the netherworld blood was constantly corroding the long strips of the vast crystal threads. Every time the netherworld wind entered the long strips, the vast crystal threads would dim a bit. The vision inside was like a candle being blown out by the wind, suddenly extinguishing. Brother Zhu, within the clouds of the flying shuttle, a slightly short Confucian scholar with a pale face asked in a low voice, This is the ghost cave that your Zhu family has been guarding for generations? Why is it different from what I thought? It's really too terrifying. In front of the Confucian scholar, the one controlling the flying shuttle with all his strength was naturally Zhu Xiang. The surface of his body was slightly overflowing with true qi, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Looking at his appearance, it seemed that he wanted to urge the flying shuttle to get closer to the Yuan array. Unfortunately, there was already too much netherworld wind rushing up, and the netherworld blood within it was violently corroding the outer layer of the flying shuttle. Moreover, the powerful force in the soil layer also prevented the flying shuttle from going any further. A trace of disappointment flashed in Zhu Xiang's eyes, and then he immediately withdrew his true qi. He turned to look at the Confucian scholar and nodded. Yes, what Brother Lu said is right. This is the ghost cave that I mentioned before. This is the end of the ghost cave. The Yuan array that you saw in the clear eyes technique was set up by my Zhu family's ancestors. But another slightly fat Confucian scholar wiped the sweat on his cheeks and somewhat puzzled said, Brother Zhu, how come I only saw the Yuan array and didn't see any ghosts? Ghosts are otherworldly items. If we don't have a special clear eyes technique, we shouldn't be able to see them. The one who spoke was Yu Zhongquan, who was standing behind Zhu Xiang. His face became even paler, but his mature eyes were full of determination. Brother Zhu, you're exaggerating. 2 feet behind the crowd, Another Confucian scholar dressed in brocade clothes pressed his hands on the flying shuttle beside him. Streams of exquisite true qi were slowly sent from his body into the flying shuttle. This Confucian scholar's cultivation was obviously more powerful than Zhu Xiang and the others, and now he was still calm and unruffled as he said with a smile, "This is admittedly a huge yuan array, and now it's inexplicably floating up and down, but that doesn't mean this is a ghost cave. Moreover, from what I know, the Zhu family doesn't have the strength to set up such a huge yuan array. Brother Zhu's idea of reviving the Zhu family's reputation is commendable, but you can't use this gimmick to deceive the brothers who helped you." Zhu Xiang opened his mouth, wanting to explain something, but after a moment, he smiled bitterly and said in a low voice, "This Zhu knows that you brothers won't believe me. In fact, even this Zhu didn't believe it when my father told me. But now, seeing such a magnificent yuan array, this Zhu has no choice but to believe it. Moreover, my father said that there were many dangers, and this Zhu has already sensed many of them. Hee, brother Zhu. It's not that this little brother doesn't want to believe you." The Confucian scholar smiled and said, "Even if this yuan array was set up by your Zhu family's ancestors, what does it have to do with a ghost cave? Below the yuan array is the netherworld's Yin wind, and now the Yin wind is so strong that the yuan array is already unable to withstand it." Zhu Xiang almost couldn't suppress the impulse in his blood, and he couldn't suppress the instinctive fear in his heart. His teeth trembled slightly as he spoke in a low voice. "I believe you," Yu Zhongquan said solemnly, "not to mention the blood-colored Yin wind below the yuan array. Even the surroundings of the flying shuttle are blowing Yin wind." "Ah, brother you can see it?" The Confucian scholar surnamed Lu said in surprise. "You don't seem to have used the clear eyes technique at all. This one's eyes have been able to see otherworldly items since young." Yu Zhongquan replied indifferently, "That's why this one wants to be a wandering hero and sweep the world of ghosts." The tall Confucian scholar was also surprised, but he looked at Yu Zhongquan and asked Zhu Xiang, "Brother Zhu, you invited us to help you, but now that the flying shuttle can no longer get close to the yuan array, shouldn't you make a move?" Zhu Xiang gritted his teeth and nodded. "That's right. This Zhu is truly grateful to all of you brothers. If it weren't for all of you driving this flying shuttle with this Zhu wouldn't have been able to get so close to the yuan array, and this Zhu's idea of repairing the yuan array would never have been realized." Haha, brother Zhu is too polite. A few Confucian scholars with lower cultivations in the distance laughed and said, "Uncle is too demanding of you. This is something we all know. If you can repair this yuan array today, Uncle Zhu will definitely have a whole new level of respect for you. This way, our efforts won't be in vain." Zhu Xiang's heart warmed, but immediately after, the strangeness of the yuan array made him unable to calm down. He knew in his heart that things weren't good. He couldn't help but sigh, but he still smiled and said, "You and I are friends who have gone through life and death together. Otherwise, this Zhu wouldn't have invited all of you here. This Zhu appreciates all of your kindness. If this Zhu is unable to repay all of you in this life, this Zhu hopes to get to know all of you again in the next life." "What are you talking about, brother Zhu?" The Confucian scholar surnamed Lu who spoke before turned around and patted Zhu Xiang's shoulder, shouting, "Go and come back quickly. This little brother is still waiting for you to set up a banquet to celebrate. I'm still waiting for you to lead the entire Zhu clan to dominate the hidden immortal continent 50 years later." That's right. The group of Confucian scholars who only had the cultivation of Confucian scholars smiled and said, their smiles were filled with warmth. Boom! At this moment, the originally shaking yuan array was suddenly lifted high up. Several long strips broke out from the yuan array. The strips rushed into the ground and immediately burst open. After a low chanting sound was heard, the vast crystal threads turned into countless armor inscriptions, and these armor inscriptions attracted countless tiny pillars of vast qi. Unfortunately, the moment these vast qi pillars appeared, they were already blown away by the netherworld wind that came out from the gaps of the yuan array. As for the flying shuttle that Zhu Xiang and the others were riding, at this moment, it was violently shaking. The clouds outside the flying shuttle disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although the Confucian scholars couldn't see the yin qi of the underworld, the bone-chilling cold made them feel that something was wrong. -13. Chapter 38:51. Not good. The tall Confucian cultivator's expression changed, and he hurriedly shouted, "Brother Zhu, hurry. My Earth shuttle can't hold on any longer, and there's no time to fix your formation. We have to return quickly." No. Zhu Xiang's eyes became even more resolute, and he shook his head. "I won't return until I fix this formation." "Zhu Xiang," the Confucian cultivator hurriedly shouted, "do you want to die? You're just a scholar. It's enough that you have filial piety. Moreover, as long as there's life, there's hope. While my Earth shuttle can still hold on, let's hurry back to the surface. Tomorrow or after we're fully prepared. It won't be too late to fix the formation." Sigh. Zhu Xiang looked at the formation and saw another long piece being blown out. He narrowed his eyes and shook his head. "Brother Song, you're right. I didn't prepare well enough, and I don't know enough about this formation. But now that I'm here, I can feel that this is where my destiny lies. Brothers, I'm going out now. You wait? What are you talking about?" Brother Song said angrily, "We're brothers. How can we leave you here alone? Go." With that, Brother Song urged his true chi to change the direction of the shuttle, and the Confucian cultivators worked together to drive the shuttle out of the ground. However, an indescribable suction force was emitted from the origin formation. It was as if a large hand was tightly grabbing onto the flying shuttle. Everyone exerted all their strength, but the flying shuttle flew up an inch. It even fell a few feet towards the origin formation. Brother Song. Seeing this, Zhu Xiang smiled miserably and shouted, "Hurry and open the shuttle. As long as I fly out, the shuttle can be activated immediately." This, Brother Song was hesitant. "There's no time." Seeing a few more pieces of vast crystal falling out of the formation and more netherworld wind blowing out, Zhu Xiang flew to the surface of the shuttle and said anxiously, "Brother Song, if you don't want your brothers to die with me, hurry up and send me out." "All right." Brother Song clenches his teeth and opens the door of the shuttle a slit. Zhu Xiang jumped out of the shuttle without hesitation. Sure enough, as soon as Zhu Xiang flew out, the shuttle immediately moved and flew towards the ground. Zhu Xiang, on the other hand, had fallen into the layer of soil, and the suction force from the origin formation was holding him in place, preventing him from leaving. However, under the wind of the netherworld, the vital energy around his body was rapidly disappearing, and his entire body was blocked, preventing him from falling into the origin formation. It was as if the wind of the netherworld was preventing Zhu Xiang from falling into the origin formation. What should we do? At this point, Zhu Xiang was not afraid of death, but he did not want to die in vain. He would rather follow the warning in his heart and send his flesh and blood into the origin formation to die. "Let me help you." Just as Zhu Xiang was caught between a rock and a hard place, Yu Zhongquan's voice rang out. Above Zhu Xiang's head, there was a flash of sword light. Yu Zhongquan controlled the flying sword with great difficulty and arrived beside Zhu Xiang. He grabbed Zhu Xiang, and the brilliance of the sword not only blocked the chi of the netherworld, but also brought Zhu Xiang towards the origin formation. "Brother Yu." Zhu Yin was shocked and hurriedly cried out, "You? How did you get out of the shuttle? Quick." "Brother Zhu," Yu Zhongquan said faintly, "others don't know the danger inside, but in my eyes, I can see it clearly. Now that the Yin wind in the netherworld is raging, the blood chi in the netherworld has rushed out of the origin formation. If Brother Zhu does not repair the origin formation, it will definitely cause the Yin chi to completely leak out of the ghost cave. Although my cultivation is shallow and I can't be a real ranger, I can't do anything that can really enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. But if I want to accompany Brother Zhu to die, I can still do it. You don't understand." At this point, Zhu Xiang did not know how to explain to Yu Zhongquan. Whoosh! The chi of the netherworld suddenly fell and deeply caved in. Then, it suddenly beat like a blood-red heart. Buzz! With a loud sound, the origin formation in the vicinity of dozens of miles was pushed up high. Dozens of vast crystals that formed the origin formation were sent flying. At the same time, dozens of hurricanes blew out from the gaps, roaring and blowing towards Zhu Xiang and Yu Zhongquan. Boom! Just as the origin formation was thrown high, Zhu Xiang's body fell into the origin formation like a meteor. The huge impact tore Yu Zhongquan's sword light into pieces. CSI. Countless small sounds came from Yu Zhongquan's body. The netherworld wind instantly blew into Yu Zhongquan's sword light. Not only did it corrode his clothes, it also destroyed the true qi protecting his body. The netherworld wind spiraled and rushed into his body. Zhu Xiang's body had not yet fallen into the origin formation when a very abrupt inscription armor flashed with a dim blood-red light and rushed out from the inner layer of the origin formation. The inscription armor was a faint human figure. This human figure was like a whirlpool that instantly passed through Zhu Xiang's body. Just as the human figure came out of Zhu Xiang's body, Zhu Xiang's face suddenly turned pale, but the human figure was full of blood. The blood essence in Zhu Xiang's body was actually sucked out by the inscription armor. The blood-red human figure let out a sigh like a Buddha, and the origin formation also flashed with a bright light following the sigh of the human figure. Woo! In the void, countless noble qi pillars rushed into the human figure. In a moment, the human figure was like a blood-red child body that suddenly expanded. Sacrifice my blood essence, sacrifice my soul, with my life, I seal your ghost cave. The child body's aged voice let out an extremely obscure inscription. It rushed into the origin formation with countless noble qi. The entire origin formation's blood-red multicolored light mixed with wisps of clouds flowed between the noble crystals at an extremely fast speed. The places that were broken by the netherworld qi were repaired at an extremely fast speed. Even the origin formation that was raised high fiercely shrank back, forcefully suppressing the netherworld qi. Everything was developing according to Zhu Xiang's plan. However, the netherworld wind was only suppressed for a few breaths, and the origin formation was once again expanded by an even stronger counterattack. The child body that had not yet merged with the origin formation was immediately shattered by the impact. At the same time, more noble crystals broke away from the origin formation, and even more netherworld qi whistled and blew. Zhu Xiang's body that had lost his blood essence quickly withered, and in a few breaths of time, a small part of his body was blown away by the netherworld wind. As for Yu Zhongquan, the true qi around his body was invaded by the netherworld wind, and in a moment, his body was also riddled with holes. It was obvious that he would not survive. On top of the netherworld wind, the flying shuttle that seemed to have escaped from danger was caught up by the netherworld wind after flying for only a few hundred feet. Under the fierce wind, the flying shuttle seemed to be swung around by a big hand. Not only was its brilliance dim, but the group of Confucian scholars inside was also spinning around, unable to support themselves. Everyone's face was pale, and their hearts were filled with horror. Alas! A voice that was as old as the previous huge body came from the flying shuttle. This old man still came one step too late. The group of Confucian scholars who had already given up all hope opened their eyes. Within the clear eyes technique, the tall and thin Xiaohua fell from the sky. The netherworld wind that could extinguish all life blew against his bronze skin. Aside from the traces of golden light from before, it could not harm him at all. Senior, save me. Inside the flying shuttle, the group of cultivators' true qi had long been exhausted. They shouted loudly, but they did not know if Xiaohua could hear them. Xiaohua held the mountain river seal in his hand, and his figure flew past the flying shuttle. A suction force rushed out of the mountain river seal and covered the entire flying shuttle. Boom! The entire flying shuttle was sucked into the mountain river seal. Immediately after, Xiaohua's gaze swept over Yu Zhongquan, and after a little investigation, he knew that although he was unconscious, his life was not in danger. His mind swept his body into the Kunlun immortal realm in the space, and handed him over to Chongyuan to take care of. Xiao, Daoist Xiao. Zhu Xiang was already on the verge of death, but when he saw Xiaohua suddenly appear, his eyes unexpectedly lit up, and he opened his mouth to call out, "Senior, why did you also come?" "Don't worry." Xiaohua waved his hand, and a few feet to the left of Zhu Xiang instantly produced a faint brilliance. This brilliance firmly protected him, but this layer of faint brilliance flickered rapidly in the netherworld wind. Obviously, this layer of faint brilliance could not last for too long. This Xiao will save you. If you have anything to say, let's talk outside. While speaking, Xiao Hua's mind wrapped around Zhu Xiang, wanting to take him into the space. Contrary to Xiao Hua's expectations, his mind that could take metal and wood magnetism into the space was actually unable to move Zhu Xiang. Damn it! Xiao Hua understood that this was probably the effect of the origin formation below him. No need to waste your magic power, Taoist Xiao, Zhu Xiang said in a low voice. This little one's blood essence has been sucked away by the origin formation. Even if Taoist Xiao Hua saves this little one will not be able to live. Taoist Xiao Hua only needs to bring some words to my father. This little one will be endlessly grateful. All right. Xiao Hua looked at Zhu Xiang. His body had already lost more than half. He knew that even if he took him away, he would most likely not be able to save him. Instead, Zhu Cheng would be sad to see his son's miserable state, so he dismissed the idea of taking Zhu Xiang away. I'll have to trouble Taoist Xiao Hua to tell my father. This time this little one has disappointed him again, Zhu Xiang said weakly. This little one originally wanted to help my father strengthen this seal, but I didn't expect that the Yin Qi of the underworld would be so strong tonight. Not only did this little one fail to strengthen the seal, I even threw away my life here. If Taoist Xiao Hua did not come, I'm afraid that even the 10 or so Confucian cultivator friends that this little one invited would have lost their lives in the ghost cave. This little one is really useless. No. Right at this moment, a sorrowful and indignant voice came from behind Xiao Hua. Zhu Cheng stepped on a scroll and hurriedly landed. Xiang Father was not disappointed this time. Father. Zhu Xiang's bloodless face blushed, and he said in a low voice, Really? Father. Father hasn't said these words to this boy for a long time already. I remember that the last time was already 20 years ago, right? It was when this boy was reciting the Confucius scripture in the academy. At this point, Zhu Xiang suddenly came to a realization and said in alarm, Father, this origin formation is too strange. You must not go near it. Otherwise, it will be extremely dangerous. Xiang Seeing that his son still remembered to warn him before his death, Zhu Cheng could not help but cry. The grief in his heart was like a knife, cutting through his heart. -13. Chapter 3852. Xiao Hua waved his hand and used his nascent soul hand to firmly control Zhu Cheng and the book under his body, resisting the powerful suction force of the origin formation. Father, boy is unworthy. I have disappointed you too much in this life. Zhu Xiang's mind was somewhat fuzzy. Looking at the distant Zhu Cheng, he said, Boy has indeed worked very hard, but he still couldn't reach father's expectations. Boy himself is also very discouraged. However, Father, until now, Boy finally understood. Boy is not the kind of person who wants to be a hero. Boy's character is weak. Boy doesn't know how to speak. Boy is indecisive. But Father, not everyone in this world can be a hero. If everyone wants to be a hero, who will applaud heroes? Boy is to applaud people. Father, you often say that man can conquer the heavens, everything can be cultivated, but boy in this kind of cultivation is very unsatisfactory. Boy doesn't want to do those things that go against the nature of boy. Xiang Zhu Cheng never thought that his son's heart would be so bitter. For a moment he didn't know what to say. Boy is gone. Father, you don't have to worry about boy anymore. Little brother Zhang is still young. Boy also can't see whether he is similar to boy, but Father, if he is also like boy, please don't force him. After all, it is better to live more happily in this world. Saying this, the spirit in Zhu Xiang's eyes gradually faded, and a shadow slowly emerged. Although Xiao Hua imprisoned him, the death qi in the netherworld wind still captured Zhu Xiang's soul. Xiang Zhu Cheng bit his lips, blood flowed out from his teeth. He tried his best to urge his true qi to rush out of Xiao Hua's nascent soul hand. Zhu Cheng, do you also want to throw away your life? Xiao Hua laughed coldly and asked. With this Zhao's cultivation, I've just resisted the suction force of this origin formation. So long as you struggle free from this Zhao's technique, you'll definitely suffer the same fate as Zhu Xiang. Even if I die, I also want to accompany Xiang Zhu Cheng said without hesitation. Buzz, buzz. A powerful impact sound came from below the origin formation. The origin formation that the Zhu clan had been guarding for an unknown period of time could no longer hold on. When the Buddha's light and the clouds disappeared, hundreds of gaps appeared in the origin formation in an instant. Within dozens of miles, streams of netherworld chi rushed out from these gaps and formed a huge netherworld blood pillar that was ready to shoot out of the ghost cave. Seeing Zhu Xiang's soul was about to fall into the netherworld wind, Xiao Hua's heart moved. He took the willow branch in his hand and waved it towards the shadow. Zhu Xiang's, the willow, and Zhu Xiang's soul fell into the willow. Willow's soul also fell into the willow. Willow's soul fell into the willow. Willow's soul also fells. Soul fells.
Hua.
When Xiao Hua put the willow branch into his space, Zhu Xiang's soul also entered the spaces inside. As for his body, Xiao Hua withdrew his spiritual power and immediately turned into ashes. Even if Xiao Hua wanted to take it away, he couldn't. Xiang'er. Zhu Cheng couldn't see Zhu Xiang's soul. He didn't know that Zhu Xiang's soul had already fallen into Xiao Hua's spaces inside, but father and son were connected. When Zhu Xiang's soul was destroyed, Zhu Cheng felt a sharp pain in his heart. He shouted loudly. Xiao Hua didn't wait for him to finish shouting. His yuanying hand grabbed him. He looked back at the Buddhist light inside the origin formation and shouted, "Go!" As Xiao Hua flew out with the soulless Zhu Cheng, the Yuan formation inside the Yuan ghost cave had completely collapsed. Boundless netherworld chi mixed with death chi rushed out of the ghost cave, just like the netherworld blood pillar that Xiao Hua had seen before, and pierced straight into the night sky. This was already the third blood pillar that had appeared. Looking at the three netherworld chi pillars around him, Xiao Hua's eyes became solemn. He brought Zhu Cheng, who had been silent all this time, back to the Zhu family village. After waiting for a moment, he asked, "Zhu Cheng, I'm very sorry about Zhu Xiang's matter." "No need." Zhu Cheng waved his hand and said, "This is the fate of my Zhu family's descendants. Xiang died in the ghost cave. He died a worthy death. His death is heavier than a mountain peak." It's good that you understand." Xiao Hua nodded. He pointed at the three netherworld chi pillars and said, "However, today's crisis seems to have just begun. As for what the real crisis is, it seems like you also don't know. I hope that you and I can work together to stop this crisis and save a few more lives. We can't let Zhu Xiang die in vain in the ghost cave." "Yes, this one understands." Zhu Cheng took a deep breath. He nodded and said, "This one will definitely turn grief into strength and help Taoists Xiao to bring grace to the Phoenix Soaring Kingdom." Xiao Hua nodded and immediately asked, "Good. You should explain the Zhu family's matter clearly. How many ghost caves are there in the Phoenix Soaring Kingdom?" Zhu Cheng looked at the Zhu family manor under his feet and said, "Good to let benefactor know. Although my Zhu family has always been guarding this ghost cave Yuang, even this one's 3 generations of ancestors did not encounter any special abnormalities. That ghost cave Yuang is sealed by the blood essence of the 3 generations of Zhu family patriarchs. Every year during the Ghost Festival, there is only yin qi spewing out, covering the surrounding 100 li. Even if there is an otherworldly item moving at night within the yin qi, when the rooster crows, all the yin qi and otherworldly items will disappear. It is no different from the legends of the secular world. Therefore, my Zhu family only knows that there is this ghost cave Yuang in Wuyuan County. We don't know if there are other ghost caves in Wuyuan County. We also don't know if there are other ghost caves in Jinghua County and Fancheng County. As for how many ghost caves there are in the Phoenix Soaring Kingdom, I'm afraid that only the 18 kings of hell know. So, you also don't know what kind of calamities there are in the ghost caves." Xiao Hua slightly frowned. "But what is the 10,000-year calamity you mentioned?" "I'll let benefactor know." Zhu Cheng hurriedly explained. "When I was a child, I went to Fancheng County to study. There was a legend about the ghost prison among the old people there. They said that 10,000 years ago, the Phoenix Soaring Kingdom was a Confucian empire that was many times more powerful than the Phoenix Soaring Kingdom. This Confucian empire was rich, and the people were strong." "Get to the point." Xiao Hua somewhat anxiously interrupted Zhu Cheng's story. "Yes, benefactor." Zhu Cheng realized that he had lost his composure and said, "According to the villagers, this is also the Ghost Festival. For some unknown reason, all the living creatures on this land have turned into ghosts. The land is sealed by an energy, and there is no trace of life. Otherworldly items are wreaking havoc on the land, just like the legendary ghost prison. Later, the immortals of the Immortal Palace took action and drew the destiny of the 9 regions to exterminate the ghosts in this ghost prison. No wonder the Confucian cultivators tolerated the Taoist cultivators in the Phoenix Soaring Kingdom. Xiao Hua sneered. It turned out that there was such a secret. Io, fellow Taoist Jew, you said, the destiny of the 9 regions? Could it be that this ghost cave is related to the 9 regions cauldrons that suppress the destiny of the 9 regions? Speaking of destiny, Xiao Hua couldn't help but think of the 9 regions cauldrons and the 6 cauldrons in his space. His heart thumped, thinking that this was bad. Of course. Zhu Cheng nodded affirmatively. The 9 cauldrons of our Confucian cultivators stabilize the 9 regions. Not only does it stabilize the destiny of the Confucian cultivators, but it also focuses on the human aura and stabilizes the vitality. The 9 cauldrons were originally one body, protecting the 9 regions. If there was the protection of the 9 cauldrons, this ghost cave wouldn't be so powerful, and the powerful ghosts inside the ghost cave wouldn't be able to rush out. Hiss. Xiao Hua sucked in a mouthful of cold air for the 3rd time tonight. He didn't expect that he would actually become the culprit of this disaster. You mean? Xiao Hua was still unwilling and said in a low voice, the 9 cauldrons are one body. As long as one of them is taken, the 9 cauldrons won't be able to protect the 9 regions? Of course. Zhu Cheng nodded. The location of the 9 cauldrons is the biggest secret of the Confucian cultivators. No one knows about it. Not to mention taking one of the 9 cauldrons. Even if one of them is moved, the entire 9 cauldrons' great formation will be completely destroyed. Even if you restore the 9 cauldrons, the great formation won't be able to be formed. Phew. Hearing Zhu Cheng's words, Xiao Hua's heart immediately relaxed, and he let out a long breath. It seems that I'm not the instigator, and I'm not helping the evildoer. However, because of this, Xiao Hua suddenly had doubts. Woo! The 4th strange sound came from a different direction from the other 3, but it was somewhat similar to the direction of the ghost cave. Zhu Cheng bit his lips and said, This is my Wunkani. Fellow immortal Zhu, I'll ask you one more thing. Xiao Hua secretly calculated in his heart and asked again. Benefactor, please speak. Is the 9 cauldrons so important that all the Confucian cultivators know about it? No. Zhu Cheng shook his head. This was passed down by my Zhu family's ancestors. Just like the heavenly book's true explanation, it's not known to others. Even if someone knows about it, there won't be too many. Most people only know that the 9 cauldrons are legendary objects, symbols of royal power. No wonder. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. It seems that even if Kong Hongwu is a Confucian cultivator, he might not know about the importance of the 9 cauldrons. Then, the Western Paradise and the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm don't have the 9 cauldrons to suppress them, right? How do they deal with their ghost caves? Xiao Hua asked again. Zhu Cheng smiled bitterly. Benefactor, what you're thinking is something I've never thought about. However, Buddhism has always been the nemesis of ghosts, and they also have the 6 paths of reincarnation secret technique. The Western Paradise must have a Buddhist divine ability to suppress the ghost caves, right? And in the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm, what's the difference between those demons and ghosts? Even ghosts are afraid of demons, right? Woo! The 5th strange sound came from a different direction from the other 4. Zhu Cheng looked at the direction of the 5th sound and said in a low voice, This is the direction of Fanchong County. It seems the ghost caves should be concentrated in Wuyuan County, Jinghua County, and Fanchong County. Xiao Hua nodded and looked at the Zhu family village below him, saying, The Zhu family village seems to be safe. Fellow immortal Zhu, can you accompany me to these ghost caves? Of course. Zhu Cheng nodded. This is the clan law left behind by my ancestors. It's also the mission engraved in the bones of my Zhu family's people. I'm duty-bound. Since Jean can make such a decision, why can't I? -13. Chapter 38:53. Okay. Xiao Hua lifted Zhu Cheng and said, As long as this Xiao is fine, this Xiao will guarantee your safety. As for Zhu Xiang's sigh, this Xiao can't say anything right now. Let's go. While speaking, Xiao Hua brought Zhu Cheng and turned into a rainbow as they descended towards the first ghost cave. The grief in Zhu Cheng's heart hadn't subsided by much. He didn't care about Xiao Hua's words and only took them as a form of consolation. As Xiao Hua's rainbow figure flew, the scarlet blood appeared on his lips again. When they were still far away from the ghost cave, a foul smell mixed with a faint smell of blood assailed their nostrils. Through his heaven's eye, he saw that the netherworld style was sticky. Not only did it fill the night sky, it also fell on the mountain ridge, trees, and rivers. The netherworld's blood on the ground was naturally different from the ones in the air. It formed the strange pattern that Xiao Hua saw during the day. How come there are other cultivators? Xiao Hua's heaven's eye swept past the netherworld's blood and then fell on the mountain ridge. An old man who looked like a farmer was standing on top of it. His gaze fell on the netherworld's energy pillar. Of course, Xiao Hua bringing Zhu Cheng closer naturally alarmed the old man. The old man's eyes flickered with faint yellow clouds as he turned his head. Old man Zhu? The old man was slightly surprised when he saw Zhu Cheng. He then bowed towards Xiao Hua and said, I wonder who this fellow immortal is. This humble one is Xiao Hua from the Dao sect. Xiao Hua brought Zhu Cheng and returned the greeting. A cultivator from the Dao sect? The old man frowned. He clearly hadn't heard of Xiao Hua's name. Who are you? Looking at the farmer, Zhu Cheng calmed himself down and asked with a strange expression, This old man seems to have never seen fellow immortal before. The farmer faintly smiled and said, The Zhu family is a famous scholarly family in my Fengxiang country. Old man Zhu's name is not only known in Wuyuan County, but also in Jingyue County where this old man lives. Xiao Hua's heart moved. He stared at the old man and asked, Could it be that fellow immortal is also a member of a family? Are you guarding the ghost cave like the Zhu family? This humble one is Sun Qing. Greetings fellow immortal Zhu and fellow immortal Xiao. When the old man heard Xiao Hua's words, his eyes lit up and he bowed again. Sun Qing? Sun Zi? Zhu Cheng came to a sudden realization. He stared at the old man and exclaimed, Could fellow immortal be the descendant of the literary sage Sun Zi? Alas, isn't the Zhu clan also the descendant of Saint Zhuxi? Sun Qing sighed. Today, this old man finally understands why your Zhu clan declined. It looks just like my Sun family. Yeah, Zhu Cheng couldn't help but sigh. In ancient times, the Sun family was a first-rate aristocratic family. Now, it's still inferior to my Zhu family. I thought that the Sun family's disciples were long gone. Actually, it's about time. Sun Qing sighed. He looked at the ghost cave and said sadly, Perhaps this will be the last time the Sun family will use their flesh, blood, and essence to seal a ghost cave. Your Sun clan has a curse as well? Zhu Cheng raised his brows and asked, Does fellow immortal Sun have any descendants? Isn't that obvious? What your Zhu clan has, my Sun clan naturally has as well. Sun Qing nodded. I can't compare to old Master Zhu. Although I have a son, he can't compare to young Master Zhu. Let's not talk about this anymore. Hearing Sun Qing mention Zhu Xiang, Zhu Cheng's heart ached. He wanted to change his words, but he still said, Don't mention that unfilial son. He's too weak. He can't be the successor of my Zhu family. However, as soon as Zhu Cheng finished speaking, his heart ached as if it was bleeding. Successor? Old Master Zhu, you should be content. It's already good that you have a successor. Sun Qing grinned and said, Not only did my Sun clan decline long ago, but I'm afraid that even our bloodline is about to be cut off. Alas, fellow immortal Sun, you don't know. Xiao Hua looked at Zhu Cheng. He knew that it was difficult for this elder, who expected better from him, to say what was in his heart. Thus, he sighed and said, Old Master Zhu's son, Zhu Xiang, died in the ghost cave just now in order to seal the ghost cave. Sun Qing's expression changed. He bowed deeply to Zhu Cheng and said solemnly, On behalf of the hundreds of thousands of people in Jingyue County, I thank the Zhu clan for sacrificing themselves for us. I'm ashamed. Zhu Cheng hurriedly helped him up and said softly, This is the responsibility of our aristocratic families. It's our responsibility. It's also Ma-Er's responsibility. Woo. At this moment, the sixth strange sound was heard. The direction was different from the other five. This is the direction of Fancheng County. Sun Qing hurriedly raised his head and looked into the distance. He said in a low voice, "It seems that Fancheng County also has a declining aristocratic family like the Zhu and Sun clan. Confucian cultivators have hidden immortals for tens of thousands of years. How many aristocratic families have become drifting duckweeds?" Zhu Cheng sighed. "Let's go." Xiao Hua rolled up his sleeves and said, "You all follow this Xiao to see which aristocratic family is the third one." Sun Qing wanted to decline, but under the influence of Xiao Hua's magic, he couldn't even move. Unconsciously, Sun Qing looked at Xiao Hua's young face in surprise. After which, he furrowed his brows, thinking about something. Xiao Hua was like a rainbow piercing through the moon. The netherworld's blood threads that filled the sky didn't give him any hindrance. In just a moment, he arrived in the sky above Fancheng County. It was already late at night. Not to mention that it was a year of famine. Everyone was lying on the ground and holding their stomach as they waited for the sun to come. Even if it was a rich year, on the night of the Ghost Festival, who would dare to go out into the wild? However, in the jungle dozens of li away from Fancheng County, Xiao Hua saw a slightly short but extremely fat middle-aged man with a butcher knife in his hand. He slowly pushed aside the thorns on the ground and walked up to the distant mountain ridge. Looking at the fat man's actions, it was really clumsy and difficult. The night is long, the moon is bright, the jungle is deep, the roots are continuous. Are you chopping firewood? Xiao Hua's figure landed on the ridge in front of the man's head. He lowered his head and asked, "Ah." The man obviously didn't feel Xiao Hua's arrival. He was shocked and the butcher knife in his hand almost fell to the ground. "Fatty Zhang? You. Zhu Cheng obviously knew this person. Seeing this familiar figure, he couldn't help but shout, "How could it be you?" "Old man Zhu? You? How did you come here?" Fatty Zhang heard Zhu Cheng's voice and felt relieved. He lowered his head to look for the butcher knife and shouted loudly. He then climbed up the ridge with difficulty. However, the fat on the fat man's body trembled and his steps were difficult. He obviously didn't have any cultivation. Xiao Hua raised his hand and beckoned, and the fatty was caught up in the air. The fatty's appearance of baring his fangs and brandishing his claws in midair really made people laugh. "Little Zhang greets Immortal Senior." As soon as Fatty Zhang landed on the ground, he immediately bowed to Xiao Hua. On his fat face, two small eyes shone with admiration. "You are a descendant of the Zhang family?" Sun Qing looked at the rather unscrupulous fat man and asked in disbelief, "The Zhang family of the ancient first-class scholarly family?" Zhang's face flushed red. He bowed and said, "Little Zhang is indeed a descendant of the Zhang family. Senior, may I know who, alas?" Without waiting for Sun Qing to speak, Zhu Cheng sighed and said, "Zhang Zi of the Zhang family is also a scholarly sage. The Zhang family is also a first-class scholarly family. But now, Zhang of the Zhang family is actually reduced to a butcher. Lamentable, lamentable." Yes, Master Zhu. Although the Zhu family was already in decline, in the eyes of the secular world, it was still a big family in Wuyuan County. Zhang was a butcher who slaughtered pigs. In the past, he often sent pork to the Zhu family village. Everyone was in awe of Zhu Cheng. Xiao Hua, however, had a smile on his face. He pointed at Zhang and said, "Fellow Immortal Zhu, fellow Immortal Sun, you were wrong. Regardless of whether he was a butcher or not, regardless of whether he has scholarly cultivation, as long as he can come to the side of the ghost cave today, his blood is burning hot. He is a brave man. He is not inferior to any scholarly cultivator on the hidden immortal continent. Righteous people are all butchers. Unfaithful people are mostly scholars. That's probably the case." "That's right." Sun Qing was the first to wake up. He hurriedly bowed and said to Zhang, "This old man was wrong. Please forgive me, fellow Immortal Zhang." "Exactly. Since fellow Immortal Zhang came here, you are naturally determined to die, even more so than this old man." At this point, Zhu Cheng didn't know whether he was sad or ashamed. He couldn't continue and bowed deeply. Zeng was greatly alarmed. He hurriedly helped the two people up and said with a bitter smile, "This little one. How can this little one be as noble as this immortal elder said? This little one is just following the ancestors' instructions and doing my best to guard the ghost cave. But after tonight, my Zeng family won't have the chance to guard the ghost cave anymore." Alas, that's right. The dog is still young and doesn't know anything. How could he know that you were going to die tonight? Zhu Cheng sighed. Woo. The seventh strange sound came from a different direction from the other six. Xiaohua hurriedly looked at Zhu Cheng. Zhu Cheng understood what Xiaohua was thinking. He shook his head and said, "This little one still doesn't know about this ghost cave." "Master Zhu," Zeng said somewhat embarrassedly, "this little one didn't know that Master was also the guardian of the ghost cave. This little one thought that only this little one was. With so much energy erupting tonight, I wonder, how many ghost caves have opened?" "There are already 7. Zhu Cheng looked at the dense netherworld wind around them and said in a low voice, This many." Zeng turned pale with fright. This little one. This little one's ancestor only said that there was one. With so many ghost caves, we don't have enough people. Xiaohua's heart sank. He naturally understood that the number of people Zeng was talking about was the number of people who entered the ghost cave. Presumably, Zeng, who didn't have any cultivation, came here to prepare to jump into the ghost cave just like his ancestor. However, from Zhu Xiang's death, he could see that the energy erupting from the ghost cave today was different from before. Just using the blood essence of a cultivator family's disciple to seal the ghost cave was no longer enough. They had to figure out the cause of the ghost cave's eruption and the harm it would cause to the millions of villagers in the 3 towns. Zhu Cheng looked into the distance with worry and said in a low voice, "Could it be that the ghost cave is really coming out again? How can this be stopped?" -13. Chapter 3854. Master Zhu is from a rich family. There must be treasures left behind in the ancestral hall. Zheng Zian said with envy, "If Master Zhu has treasures, he can definitely guard the ghost cave." Alas, Zhu Cheng waved his hand and said, "My Zhu family's ancestral hall has long been ruined. Where would there be treasures?" Zhu Cheng's words were like a sudden clap of thunder, immediately stunning Xiaohua. The bone that Zhu Cheng gave him clearly wrote, Ancestral Hall Wooden Statue Xintian Qi, Family History Silk Cloth Descendants. If there was no ancestral hall, where would there be a wooden statue? Where would there be a family history? Xiaohua came to the Zhu family. Of course he wanted to see what the wooden statue was and what the family history was, but he didn't have the chance, or he was embarrassed to ask. But he didn't expect that Zhu family would simply lose their ancestral hall. Zhu family doesn't have an ancestral hall? When did this happen? Xiaohua was still a bit unwilling and asked hurriedly, "This one doesn't know." Zhu Cheng shook his head and said, "This one only vaguely heard about the ancestral hall from my father, but I've never seen it. What about Xing family and Sun family?" Xiaohua felt something was wrong and turned to look at Xing Zian and Sun Qing. As expected, the two shook their heads and answered in unison, "Our families are ruined. Where would there be ancestral halls?" At this moment, Wu, the 8th strange sound came from a different direction from the other 7. There are already 8 ghost caves. Xiaohua could only withdraw his doubts and squint his eyes to look at the 7 pillars of air in the distance. The last one that appeared was still not fully formed, but the first one that appeared already looked like a blood pillar. The ghost cave that this one is guarding hasn't erupted yet. Sun Qing said, "Fellow immortal Xiao, this one, Wu." Before Sun Qing could finish speaking, the 9th strange sound rang out, instantly interrupting Sun Qing's words. Sun Qing's expression changed greatly as he said in shock, This strange sound is coming from the nether ghost cave. Then what about the small one?" Zhang Zian also panicked and asked hurriedly, "There are already 3 ghost caves in Fancheng County." Zhu Cheng said and pointed at the 3 places in the distance and asked, "Is there one that your Zheng family is guarding?" Zhang Zian looked in that direction and said in a low voice, "Yes." "Done." Xiaohua looked at the 3 of them and comforted them. "Now that there are 9 ghost caves, each of you can only seal one. Even if the 3 of you die in the ghost caves, I'm afraid you won't be able to seal all 9 ghost caves. Once upon a time, these were some medicinal pills. Take them back and sleep. If he woke up tomorrow and Fancheng County was still around, he would let his family consume this pill. Since you and Zhu Cheng are already acquainted with each other, you can support each other in the future. But he had wanted to say something. Xiaohua completely ignored him. He also took out a jade bottle and handed it to Sun Qing, saying, "Old Master Sun, I'll leave this to you as well. I don't want to say the same thing a second time. Take Zhangqian and leave first." All right. Sun Qing knew that he had lost his usefulness, and it was useless for him to stay here. He nodded and said, "I will obey Taoist Master Zhao's instructions." It's just that Sun Qing didn't accept Xiaohua's medicinal pills. He had the same personality as his ancestor, Sun Zizhen. Hee, fellow immortal Sun. This is a pill to break the curse. Zhu Cheng reminded. Sun Qing was startled at first, but then he shook his head. "I don't need this pill anymore." "Your Sun family's curse has been broken?" Zhu Cheng was somewhat puzzled. Sun Qing thought for a moment and said, "My son was born slow-witted. Not to mention studying and cultivating. Even living like an ordinary person is difficult. It doesn't matter if there is a curse or not." So that's how it is. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then took out a small jade bottle and handed it to Sun Qing, saying, "This is a medicinal liquid refined by spiritual wisdom derivation. Its effect is better than Spirit Awakening pill. It's called Spirit Awakening Liquid. This thing must be useful for your son. Take it." "This?" Sun Qing looked at the jade bottle, unable to react for a moment. Zhu Cheng hurriedly grabbed it and handed it to Sun Qing, saying, "Quickly take it. Taoist Master Zhao's magic power is boundless. These pills are rare in the world." "Thank you, Taoist Master." Sun Qing's hands were trembling as he hurriedly stuffed the jade bottle into his clothes. "Let's go, fellow Taoist Jew. Take me to see if there are any other ghost caves other than these 9. Xiaohua didn't pay attention to Sun Qing's thanks. With a wave of his hand, he brought Zhu Cheng and flew towards the middle of 2 ghost caves in the distance. The 9 ghost caves were spread over 3 towns. As long as one looked at the arrangement, they could tell that there should be 3 ghost caves in each of the 3 towns. A total of 9 ghost caves formed the power of 9 stars. Xiaohua flew into the air. Using his heaven's eye, he saw that the entire night sky was covered in blood threads. The blood threads rolled and formed a blood mist that drifted in all directions. It was as if this 1,000-li range was another ghost cave. "Damn it!" Xiaohua cursed in a low voice. "This is the hidden, immortal continent of Confucian cultivators. There is no reason. Why do you want me to do this? Where did the experts of the so-called immortal palaces and the so-called cultivation families go? Ghost caves appear. Heaven's secrets are in chaos. Heaven's secrets are in chaos. Heaven and earth are upside down. Immortals and mortals are falling." Zhu Cheng said in a low voice, "This is the sign of great chaos in the hidden immortal continent. Since my Wuyuan County is like this, other places might not be that strong. Taoist Master Xiao, don't expect other Confucian cultivators to come." "What about the land?" Xiaohua was shocked. He immediately thought of the land of the immortal palaces that he encountered near the Black Wind Mountain. These lands are the eyes and ears of the immortal palaces. Presumably, this Wuyuan County. Unfortunately, thinking of this, Xiaohua's heart turned cold. That land said clearly that the immortal palaces controlled the overall situation of the hidden immortal continent. It was impossible for them to control such minute details. The Black Wind Mountain was only because of Xiaohua that the Hall of Light sent down an immortal order to the nearest land to investigate. And this Wuyuan County, even the Fengxiang country, had long declined. Which land would stay here? It's not time yet, right? Xiaohua raised his head and looked at the bright blood moon. He suddenly thought of the blood moon in the Ming Mountains. Ziming's face inexplicably appeared. Soon, hearing Xiaohua's question, Zhu Cheng was slightly stunned at first, but soon understood. He squinted his eyes and looked at the bright moon in the sky. Sure enough, as soon as Zhu Cheng's voice fell, the moonlight of the blood-colored full moon suddenly trembled, and the brilliance was exceptionally bright. Xiaohua's body also suddenly expanded with a hu sound. The moonlight above the blood-colored full moon was 3 times larger than usual, and it scattered towards the ground. Xiao Hua's demon body immediately sensed it. Huh, this is... Xiao Hua was somewhat puzzled. After all, he was also in the hidden immortal continent on the 15th of July every year. He had never seen such a phenomenon before. Puff! 9 abnormally clear sounds came from the 9 blood pillars. Immediately, the entire night sky suddenly turned cold. Within the blood pillars, countless ghostly wails and howls faintly came out. 100 ghosts parade. At this time, Zhu Cheng was already scared out of his wits. He said calmly, in the past, it would happen on the 15th of July every year. But tonight's momentum seems to be several hundred times bigger. It's better to call it the 1,000 Ghosts Parade. Swoosh. At this time, the bright moonlight suddenly weakened a bit. The entire blood-red night sky became even colder. Zhu Cheng didn't raise his head and explained, every time the 100 Ghosts Parade, the moon star will have a phenomenon. Those dark clouds will cover the full moon, and even rain will fall from the sky. Xiao Hua also didn't pay attention to the astronomical phenomenon. He only watched as the netherworld energy within 1,000 li began to boil. The 9 blood pillars sent out strange fluctuations, completely stirring up the netherworld energy. The fluctuations were sometimes high and sometimes low, like different tides colliding with each other. A moment later, Xiao Hua asked again, this scattered netherworld energy will have a great impact on the villagers of the 3 towns, right? Alas. Zhu Cheng nodded. If it's a good year, these millions of secular people will be full of vitality. Their young energy will be flourishing, and the netherworld energy won't be able to touch them. But right now, it's a disaster year. 90% of the millions of villagers are on the verge of death. They are only 1 step away from starving ghosts. Moreover, tonight's energy is 9 times more than in previous years. Among these 90% villagers, 50% to 70% will be corroded by the yin energy. After tonight, even if they are still alive, I'm afraid they will be no different from the living dead. So many? Xiao Hua was shocked. Isn't there more than 700,000 people? It can only be more than this, not less. Zhu Cheng smiled bitterly. Actually, even without tonight's 1,000 Ghosts Parade, without benefactors' food in a few days, the number of people who will starve to death will also be this many? No. Xiao Hua shouted resolutely. If this Xiao wasn't here, then it would be fine. But since this Xiao is here, I definitely can't let 700,000 people die for no reason. But, Zhu Cheng also said, this netherworld energy. Before Zhu Cheng finished speaking, the entire night sky became a few degrees colder. The moonlight suddenly decreased by more than 30%. That's not right. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he hurriedly raised his head. Because even if the blood moon was blocked by the clouds, his monster body could still absorb the power of the moon and stars from the moon. It was impossible for it to decrease because of this. At this time, there were no red clouds in the night sky. There wasn't even a trace of cloud in the clear sky. It was impossible for the blood moon to be blocked by red clouds. But the strange thing was that a corner of the blood moon was already broken. Moreover, the broken blood moon didn't stop and was expanding little by little. Zhu Cheng naturally also woke up and looked up like Xiao Hua. Heavenly dog devouring moon. Seeing such a strange scene, Zhu Cheng couldn't help but cry out. No wonder. The night of the 15th of the 7th month is the time when the netherworld's yin energy will leak out and the 100 ghosts will parade. Now that the moon is being eaten by the heavenly dog, the yin energy between heaven and earth will probably be at its peak. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the broken moonlight. He said word by word, with such a strange situation, it would be strange if nothing happened. Hearing these words, Zhu Cheng couldn't help but tremble and his teeth couldn't help but chatter. Xiao Hua slightly turned his head and looked at Zhu Cheng strangely. However, Zhu Cheng didn't answer and reluctantly asked, Taoist Master Xiao, are there any wandering souls coming out of the ghost cave? -13. Chapter 38:55. How should I stop it? Xiao Hua felt the increasingly desolate aura around him. He raised his head to look at the blood moon that was almost completely devoured. He understood in his heart that as long as he waited for the blood moon to disappear, it might be the time for the underground ghost to appear. At that time, it would also be the time for him to fall. Perhaps the green-robed Xiaohua can save some villagers. Moreover, if I die, the green-robed Xiaohua also knows the soul-scattering cultivation technique. Maybe he can escape with his life? In this blood-red domain, Xiaohua's perception of the green-robed Xiaohua gradually weakened. He was increasingly unable to know what the green-robed Xiaohua was doing. Gotcha! Xiaohua clenched his teeth. A green light flashed between his eyebrows. He used the lightning flash and thunder roll technique. Layers of green seal characters appeared above the light hole. The three corpses in thunder roared and pounced on the wandering souls that rushed into the light hole. Seeing the wandering soul being reduced to nothingness by the three corpses in lightning, the ghost under the ground let out another obscure groan. A faint layer of blood-red light flashed, and the dragon-like lightning instantly disappeared. Even Xiao Hua's body was shackled like a rock, making it difficult for him to move. Rule? Xiao Hua was shocked. He immediately thought of the situation when he encountered the blood-drop paradise. He immediately understood that within this blood-red light, the area within 1,000 miles was the ghost's domain. All of his divine abilities would be restricted within this domain. Xiao Hua was shocked. He activated the heavenly law embodiment technique. Roar. A heaven-shaking roar sounded. A huge Dharma image appeared. This was not outside of Xiao Hua's expectations. The Dharma image that could originally grow to 1,000 feet could now only grow to 100 feet in the ghost domain. However, with the help of the holy bloodline, Xiao Hua's Dharma image was much more flexible than before. Xiao Hua, who had formed the Dharma image, quickly thought, the ghost rule is everywhere within the domain. All of my divine abilities are useless. Moreover, the ghost hasn't appeared yet. Even if I use the demonic blade, it won't work. The only thing I can do now is to stop the ghost from appearing. Obviously, the netherworld energy and countless wandering souls were exactly what the ghost needed. If the 9 ghost caves were blocked, the chi of the netherworld and the wandering souls would not be able to escape. Naturally, they would be able to stop the ghosts. Now that it's impossible to block the ghost cave, we'll have to snatch the netherworld energy and wandering souls away from the ghost's control. While thinking, Xiao Hua waved the willow branch again. As soon as the willow branch appeared, a tin-colored rainbow bridge also flew out. The rainbow bridge paused in the air for a moment and then turned into countless tin-colored rainbow bridges. These rainbow bridges fell on the heads of the wandering souls one by one. Not one more, not one less. Collect. Xiao Hua felt the willow branch in his hand suddenly sink, as if it was about to fall out of his hand. He understood that the willow branch had already succeeded. He immediately let out a low roar and lifted the willow branch up with one hand. However, Xiao Hua, who has boundless strength, is currently holding the willow branch in his hand. It is as if he is holding an enormous object, and he is unable to move at all. Not good. Xiao Hua immediately understood. This Xiao is a bit greedy. Not to mention that this Xiao does not know how to use this willow branch. Even if this Xiao knew, with this Xiao's current cultivation, without the control of Buddha Bodhi, how can this Xiao collect so many wandering souls? Heh. Suddenly, the entire earth began to tremble. The blood-colored domain was shaking crazily, and a series of strange syllables rang out in Xiao Hua's ears. Clearly, the ghost that hadn't appeared was incomparably shocked. You? Who are you? Why do you have Higan? A jerky, stuttering voice strangely appeared. It was not a voice that came from the mouth of a living person. Higan? Xiao Hua's eyes turned. He knew that the willow branch's name was Higan. He immediately sneered. This old man is Duanmu Liangsheng. You know the Duanmu family, right? This old man does not need to say more. If you have any sense, quickly retreat and don't show your face. Otherwise, even if this old man does not kill you today, my Duanmu family will definitely chase you to the 9th hell and destroy your soul. Duanmu Liangsheng? Gij, a mere Duanmu family, actually dares to be so arrogant. The voice became increasingly smooth. Following this voice, Xiaohua suddenly felt a burning pain in his hand. He could not help but let go. A layer of blood-red imprint flashed across the willow branch. Ah! The moment the imprint appeared, it immediately turned into a cluster of dark green flames and disappeared. The ghost's miserable shriek sounded in Xiaohua's ears. Xiaohua did not dare to reach out to grab the willow branch again. In a flash, he immediately used his mind to sweep it. So, with a light sound, the willow branch fell into the space. Following his mind into the dark side of the space, there were also some netherworld chi and many wandering souls. Damn Duanmu family, this official will definitely not let you off. The ghost seemed to be injured from snatching the willow branch. The vicious voice sounded very comfortable in Xiaohua's ears. Xiaohua thought that the ghost had retreated. However, in a moment, the ghost's voice sounded again. Duanmu Liangsheng, wait until this official gets out. I will definitely let you know the consequences of stopping this official. The ghost's words immediately knocked Xiaohua down from the ninth heaven. What? This guy still wants to come out? His grandmother. He still calls himself this official. What kind of official is this guy? Confucian cultivators call the 9 underworlds the underworld. Could it be that this ghost is some official of the underworld? No, I definitely cannot let this ghost out. Xiaohua's eyes turned rapidly. The Permitha willow branch is a great killing weapon. I must save it until the end. I cannot waste it for no reason. Since this Zhao's mind can also collect the netherworld wind and the wandering souls, if you don't let me, then I will use my mind to collect it. Xiaohua had previously used his mind to collect the netherworld water. However, the netherworld water was a tangible thing, while the netherworld chi and the wandering souls were formless. Xiaohua did not feel that he could collect it. Now that he had inadvertently succeeded, why would Xiaohua hesitate? Within the ghost's domain, the rules were everywhere. However, there were very few restrictions on something as ethereal as the mind. Xiaohua's mind had already covered the area within 1,000 li collect. Following Xiaohua's cold laugh, the valiant mind that could collect the metal and earth magnetism into the space immediately swept up the netherworld chi and the wandering souls. It fought against the valiant suction force within the light hole and pulled them into the dark side of the space. Xiaohua's cultivation was definitely not comparable to that ghost that had never shown its face. However, this kind of crooked robbery technique of his was much stronger than that ghost's. In just a few breaths, Xiaohua had already taken away 70% of the netherworld chi and the wandering souls from the light hole. Eowo! The entire earth shook once again. Bloody light flashed chaotically within the domain. The ghost's flustered and exasperated howls rang incessantly. Damn Duanmu family! This official will let you know the consequences of offending this official. That ghost sneered. The confinement force around Xiaohua's demonic body suddenly increased. Moreover, countless thumb-sized ghost heads emerged from the bloody light and attacked the demonic body. However, before the ghost heads could come within 1 chi of Xiaohua, the power of the stars and moon appeared on the demonic body and blocked the ghost heads. Woo! The suction force above the light hole increased once again, competing with Xiaohua's mind for the wandering souls. Xiaohua stood in midair and sneered. He might as well take drastic measures. His mind left the surroundings of the light hole and landed on the 9 ghost caves. The netherworld chi and the wandering souls that were spouting out from the ghost caves did not fall at all. They were all collected by Xiaohua. In the beginning, that ghost clearly did not notice anything. However, as the amount of netherworld chi and the wandering souls within the light hole decreased, the ghost finally woke up. Many more ghost heads rushed out from the domain. There were also dense wisps of blood that wandered all over the place, wanting to stop Xiaohua's methods. However, these methods to Xiaohua were tantamount to scratching an itch through a boot. They were completely useless. Of course, Xiaohua would not really believe that the ghost had no way to stop his mind within his domain. He knew that when the full moon was completely swallowed by the heavenly hound, victory and defeat would be decided. Sure enough, in just a moment, Xiaohua suddenly felt his surroundings turn black. This kind of black was not the kind that could be seen with the naked eye. It was completely a kind of perception in the heart. Xiaohua understood that the Heavenly Hound's lunar eclipse had already been completed. Sure enough, high up in the sky, the place where the blood moon was located was pitch black. The group of stars that were originally blocked by the moonlight now became even more resplendent. Even the edges of the group of stars produced a layer of halo. Every star appeared to be several times larger. It was also when this darkness appeared that the green-robed Xiaohua's message came from Xiaohua's mind. In this short period of time, the green-robed Xiaohua hurriedly set up a formation, barely managing to roughly protect the three towns. Moreover, under the fight between Xiaohua and the ghost, the netherworld qi did not cause any particularly large damage to the three towns. However, this message disappeared in a flash. Xiaohua had just calmed down for a moment when the green-robed Xiaohua disappeared without a trace. The demonic phoenix Xiaohua within his body desperately absorbed the essence of the stars and moon. Layers of faint halos of the stars were also produced outside Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua sighed. Forget it. Tonight's opponent is unprecedented. Let's go all out. Just after Xiaohua's sigh, a loud hong sound was heard. A cluster of black qi that was even more pitch black than the night sky spurted out from the previous light hole. The netherworld qi within the blood threads in the entire night sky instantly entered this black qi. An even more bone-chilling cold rushed out from the entire night sky. Death qi. Xiaohua's eyes slightly narrowed. Looking at the light hole that kept spurting out the black qi, he already had a plan in his mind. This ghost is the ghost of the underworld. It can't leave the death qi. It can't touch the heaven and earth origin qi or righteous qi. If it wants to move within the hidden immortal continent, it must lay down a domain. After filling the domain with the death qi, it can come out. In other words, as long as this domain is broken, there is no need for this Xiao to make a move. The hidden immortal continent's ubiquitous life qi can kill it. And in contrast, if the cultivators of my hidden immortal continent enter the underworld, their biggest enemy is not the ghost, but the ubiquitous death qi. However, at this time and place, who has such great divine ability to break this ghost's domain? -13. Chapter 3856. Jiji. A sneer like that of a night owl was heard. A wisp of smoke-like shadow flew out from the light hole along with the black qi. Amidst the sneer, it expanded like a balloon. In a short moment, it transformed into a body that was 100 zhang in size. Xiaohua's heavens, I could clearly see that this ghost's body was covered in a mist-formed official's robe. This official's robe was very strange. In the pitch-black death qi, it presented a terrifying scarlet color. The official's robe was engraved with a gray river and a malevolent ghost beast. The beast's head was like an ordinary general's armor, protecting the front of the ghost's chest. In the middle of the official's robe, there was an almost colorless robe belt. On the ghost's head, there was a red official's hat. On both sides of the official's hat, there were two ghosts formed from death qi. They were looking at Xiaohua with their sharp teeth. Under the official's hat, where the ghost's face should be, there was a surge of mist that completely covered the ghost's face. It was simply impossible to see the ghost's true appearance. Judge? Looking at the ghost's appearance, Xiaohua was dumbfounded. Although he couldn't see the ghost's appearance, its outfit was very similar to the underworld's judges of the hidden immortal continent. The only thing missing was the book of life and death in its left hand and the soul hooking brush in its right hand. Eowo! The ghost's figure was revealed. It suddenly opened its mouth, and an abnormal malevolent ghost face suddenly appeared in the mist. At the same time this ghost face appeared, Xiaohua felt a pain in his mind. The ghost face was deeply imprinted in his mind. Immediately, Xiaohua's mysterious dark cloud rapidly surged. It was as if a huge force was born from the ghost's open mouth, wanting to swallow Xiaohua's soul. Rumble. There was no need for Xiaohua to command it. Inside the mysterious dark cloud, Xiaohua's soul cultivator Xiaohua responded. Streaks of three corpses in thunder seeped out from the mysterious dark cloud. It was like a torrential waterfall that defeated the suction force in the ghost's mouth. Along with the appearance of the three corpses in thunder, the ghost's face flashed with lightning. Under the lightning, the ghost's malevolent face was smashed to pieces. Eowo. The ghost was slightly startled. It hissed and suddenly retreated. It seemed that it didn't expect Xiaohua to be able to block its attack and even counterattack. Puff, puff, puff. Just as the ghost made way for the hole of light, another 3 soft sounds were heard. 3 rays of light suddenly appeared in the pitch-black night sky, and from below the ghost, 3 human figures with red, yellow, and blue circling around each of them soared into the sky. Xiaohua was. When he suddenly saw 3 human figures, he couldn't help but be alarmed. When Xiaohua carefully looked at it, he couldn't help but be surprised and happy. The red figure was a wooden carving of an old man, which was exactly the same as the portrait of Zhu Shi that Xiaohua had seen in Zhujia Manor. At this moment, red flames were flashing inside the wooden statue. The flames overflowed the wooden statue, and lotus-like clouds wrapped around the wooden statue of Zhu Shi. Zhu rushed out of the light hole. Immediately, the wooden figure emitted a fierce aura like a flying sword. A dignified will like that of a mountain began to chant, "The ruler is the leader of the subjects. The father is the leader of the children, and the husband is the leader of the wife." These are the 3 leaders. Human beings have benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and trust. These are the 5 pillars. You are a ghost. You don't have the 3 pillars and 5 pillars. Retreat, retreat, retreat. As Master Zhu chanted the mantra, streams of righteous energy condensed into mountains. They flashed with red light and descended from the sky, carrying with them the aura of eternity. Not only did they tear apart the ghost's domain, they even smashed into the ghost's body. At the same time, the yellow wooden sculpture also moved. This wooden sculpture was of a middle-aged man with a bulging forehead. Yellow flames flickered within the middle-aged man's body, and similarly, countless lily-like clouds wrapped around him. As soon as the middle-aged man appeared, an extremely indifferent aura spread out from the wooden sculpture. Similarly, a will that made Xiaohua look up to him in awe began to recite. In ancient times, those who wish to benefit the world should first rule their country. Those who wish to rule their country should first unify their family. Those who wish to unify their family should first cultivate their body. Those who wish to cultivate their body should first straighten their heart. Those who wish to straighten their heart should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten their mind should first be sincere. Those who wish to straighten out their mind to know is to investigate things. Investigating things leads to knowing things. Knowing things leads to sincerity. Sincerity leads to righteous heart. Righteous heart leads to cultivation. Righteous heart leads to cultivation of the body. Cultivation of the body leads to unity of the family. Unity of the family leads to unity of the country. Unity of the country leads to peace of the world. Since the world is at peace, there is no place for ghosts to stay. Retreat, retreat, retreat. Zong, Zingzi. Xiaohua's eyes flashed with pleasant surprise. So, Zhu of Zhu, Zengzi, and Sunzi, the 3 saints, all left their wills in the wooden figures. They left them here to suppress this ghost. The more Zengzi's will spoke, the more righteous energy it attracted. This unparalleled righteous energy was like an all-pervasive weak water. It flashed with yellow light and also rushed towards the ghost's body. Zhu of Zhu and Zengzi's wooden figures appeared. Then the other figure flashing with blue flames and clouds was naturally Sunzi. The will of this simple and unadorned, thin saint let out a golden jade-like cry. The ruler of the country is the use of the world system. The ruler of the people is the advantage of the world. If one obtains the Tao and controls it, then there is great peace, great glory, and the source of accumulated beauty. If one does not obtain the Tao and controls it, then there is great danger and great tiredness. It is better not to have it than to have it. It is worse than to have it. A country has its laws, and a family has its rules. Where ghosts live is the underworld. Retreat, retreat, retreat. Sun Tzu's words were like a flying sword. It tore apart the domain's deathly energy and stabbed towards the ghost. The wooden figures of the three saints each flew out. The red, yellow, and blue emitted a strong aura to suppress the ghost. At this time, the wills of the three saints attacked again. Three righteous energies with unparalleled power smashed towards the ghost. The ghost's face had long been shattered. It was now filled with black mist, so its expression couldn't be seen. However, the moment the three righteous energies approached, the ghost waved its right hand and a red brush appeared. Then, the ghost waved its right hand and a wave of deathly energy poured into the red brush. The ghost then shook its hand. In a few breaths' time, three strange characters appeared. The moment these characters appeared, they immediately emitted a ghostly wail and howl. They roared and pounced towards the three righteous energies. Boom! Amidst a huge explosion, cracks appeared in the void around the ghost. Even more blood and ghost heads rushed out from the void and pounced towards the wooden figures of the three saints. However, the ghost's red brush couldn't block the three righteous energies. The righteous energies that seemed to be able to destroy everything destroyed the characters and continued to pounce towards the ghost. Even the filth that appeared in the void was destroyed by the three colored clouds before it could even get close to the wooden figures. Boom, boom, boom. The three righteous energies struck the ghost's official robe. Waves of majestic syllables came out from the robe. The syllables were like green seal characters that could communicate with ghosts and gods. They blocked the righteous energies. Although the syllables were instantly destroyed by the righteous energies' power had already been reduced by more than half. The fog around the ghost suddenly rose up high. However, when the fog gathered again, the ghost's body had already shrunk by one size. Kiki. The ghost laughed nastily. Three old farts. Your main body isn't even here, yet you still want to suppress this official. Don't you think you're being too delusional? Tonight is the time of the lunar eclipse. Your suppressive power has already reached its weakest point. This official has already completed the 9 returns matriarch-seeking array. Even if I can't destroy your wills tonight, this official's true self will definitely receive news of this official. It won't be long before my main body finds this place. When that time comes, it won't be as simple as tonight. My two old friends. Zhu Zi's voice came from the wooden figure. This old man has been suppressing this fiend here for so many years. The Xiantian true energy can only nourish living things, not us. I'm afraid this old man won't be able to hold on for much longer. That's right. Since this fiend has already sent news to my main body, there's no point in suppressing this fiend anymore. Since we've already become enemies with the judge, we might as well kill him. This was what Zhengzi said. Sun Tzu's voice came again. In order to suppress this fiend, our 3 families have paid a great price. It's time to end this. Since that's the case, then kill him. Zhu Zi coldly snorted. The fire on the wooden figure suddenly brightened, as if the entire wooden figure had been set ablaze. Moreover, wherever the fire shone, the ghost's domain collapsed. All of the death energy was turned into nothingness by the fire. Run? Or don't run. Seeing the ghost's domain break, Xiao Hua's eyes looked at the night sky outside the domain. His heart moved. However, it was only a moment before Xiao Hua strangled this thought. How could he escape at this time? Xiao Hua held the willow branch in his hand and stared fixedly at the ghost. Buzz. Zheng Zi and Sun Zi, who were suppressing the ghost in the shape of horns, also had their wooden figures flickering with fire. Moreover, they moved closer to Zhu Zi's red fire. This 3-colored fire was so dazzling. Not only did the true energy in Xiao Hua's Dantian feel as if it was about to leave his body, Even the ghost couldn't help but raise the red brush in front of its non-existent eyes. Right at this moment, Xiao Hua saw that the ghost was distracted and unhesitatingly waved the willow branch. Shua. Wherever the willow branch went, the death energy disappeared. An invisible tin-colored rainbow bridge fell on the ghost's body. Gia, who knew that at this moment, the ghost would let out a strange laugh. Its fog-like figure suddenly moved. The red brush in its hand was thrown, blocking the rainbow bridge. Shua. At the same time the red brush disappeared, the willow branch also returned. Xiao Hua's hand tightened. The willow branch was as heavy as 1,000 caddies again. Damn it, I've been tricked. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He immediately understood the ghost's thoughts. This bastard is loosening the reins only to grasp them better. He knows that this Xiao can't use the willow branch too many times, so he pretended to be unable to defeat this Xiao and baited this Xiao into attacking. He then used the soul hooking brush to replace the peach corpse to avoid the other side's attack. This Xiao might be able to use it once now, but how can this bastard just stand there and let this Xiao kill him? Moreover, since this bastard can dodge the wills of the three saints, the three saints might not be able to kill this bastard. -13. Chapter 38:57. Run. Xiao Hua almost instantly made a decision in his heart. With a thought, Xiao Hua's figure instantly turned into a gust of wind and fled into the distance. The green-robed Xiao Hua, who was hiding in the distance, naturally followed Xiao Hua's example. Just as Xiao Hua had expected, when the ghost dodged, the wooden statues of the three holy men merged together. The three colored sparks converged and immediately transformed into a pillar of fire that pierced through the heavens and the earth. This pillar of fire contained a vast and mighty aura that poured down towards the top of the ghost's head. The might of this pillar of fire was so great that before it even landed, the ghost's official hat had already split open. The ghost heads on both sides of the official hat had already shrieked and turned into pus. However, under the light of the fire, the ghost's malevolent ghost face appeared again. Moreover, this ghost face didn't have a trace of panic on it. Instead, its scarlet eyes even carried a trace of excitement. Gigi. The ghost laughed wildly. "Three old farts, you've suppressed this official for so long. But do you know why this official came here from the underworld? Today, I'll let you see the true purpose of this official's visit." As it spoke, the ghost opened its mouth. Pooh! A thick golden aura shot out from its mouth and directly pierced into the pillar of fire. Boom! The three-colored pillar of fire's destructive aura was unparalleled, but it was powerless against this incomparably pure golden aura. The pillar of fire that reached the heavens and the earth was split into three. Moreover, this golden aura cleverly pierced into the three wooden statues at the same time. Clearly, this attack had been prepared by the ghost long ago. Gold. Song Zi's voice had just uttered a word when it was immediately killed by the surging golden aura. Although the saint's willpower was powerful, it was still only at the 9th level of origin energy. After being worn down by the aura of death for so many years, how could it be a match for the golden aura? Since Song Zi was like this, the other two saints also couldn't be kind. When the three saints' willpower was destroyed, the three wooden statues also fell from the sky. Of course, under the combined power of the three saints, although the pillar of fire was scattered, the pillar of fire still landed on the ghost's head. After the three pillars of fire were extinguished, the ghost's body was only left with less than 30% of its original size. Haha! Watching the three wooden statues flicker like embers as they fell into the hole of light, the ghost laughed heartily. Humans always think that they're smart, but they don't realize that how can humans defeat ghosts? What's more, I'm an infernal judge among ghosts. If it weren't for someone causing trouble today, this official wouldn't have suffered such a small loss. At this point, the ghost suddenly realized something and shouted, "Duanmu Yangsheng, where do you think you're going?" Xiao Hua's heart was indeed benevolent. He really wanted to spare no effort to save Wuyuan County, Jinghua County, and Fancheng County. There were over 1 million people in these three towns. Even if the 9 ghost caves erupted at the same time without any warning, Even if tens of thousands of wandering souls and malicious ghosts rushed out from the underworld, he still stood in front of the mortals. He still let the green-robed Xiao Hua go to the 3 towns to lay down a great formation. He wanted to make some sacrifices. However, when he saw the appearance of the underworld's judges, as well as the wooden statues and wills of the 3 saints, Xiao Hua realized that the situation had far exceeded his expectations. When he saw the 3 saints joining hands to fight against the enemy, Xiao Hua understood even more clearly that the 3 saints were staking everything on a single throw. He almost didn't hesitate to escape. If he wanted to save people, he would have to take out a strong divine ability. Without a strong divine ability, he would only be throwing his life away. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua still underestimated the strength of the underworld's judges. Although this underworld's judges had already been injured by the wills of the 3 saints of literature, the underworld's judge angrily roared, "Duanmu Liangsheng, where do you think you're going?" Following which, the underworld's judge's figure turned into a cloud of black fog and chased after Xiao Hua. At the same time the underworld's judge flew, the official robes he was wearing previously turned into a layer of strange scales. These scales were like protruding mountain rocks, and between the mountain rocks, there was a faint flow of netherworld water. Layers upon layers of imperceptible fluctuations were emitted from this official robes, blocking all the energy of heaven and earth a few feet away. Moreover, as the underworld's judge flew, strands of black fog were also emitted from the mountain rocks on the official robes, disappearing into the night sky. The underworld's judge's roar was different from an ordinary person's. This roar instantly entered Xiao Hua's mysterious dark clouds, scaring Xiao Hua to the point that his body trembled and he almost fell from the sky. He really didn't expect that in just a few breaths, the 3 saints of literature would be completely defeated. Damn it! Xiao Hua didn't hesitate to use the lightning escape technique. Even the green-robed Xiao Hua didn't care about it anymore. Lightning flashed around his body as he flew towards the horizon. Damn it! The underworld's judge had the same feeling as Xiao Hua. Seeing Xiao Hua's figure that was faster than a meteor and the lightning around his body that made his heart palpitate, he cursed in his heart. Although his divine ability was incomparable, all of his divine abilities relied on the death qi. Now that he was flying in a vast sea of yang qi, it was even more uncomfortable than ordinary people holding their breath underwater. Although he could use his domain to block the yang qi outside his domain, he was just injured by the will of the 3 saints of literature. His strength was only 30% of his usual. Therefore, even when he was flying, he had to rely on the protection of the underworld's official robes. He didn't want to waste the death qi. Even so, the strands of black fog that were emitted in the sky was also the consumption of his body. If this continued, there was no need for Xiao Hua to fight back. Just the yang qi of the hidden immortal continent would be enough to kill him. Of course, the reason why the underworld's judge chased after Xiao Hua was not only because Xiao Hua almost ruined his big plan. The most important thing was the Permitha in Xiao Hua's hands. To the underworld's judge, the Permitha was 100 times more important than the thing he conspired in Wuyuan County. Since this underworld's judge could pay a lot for that thing, he would definitely not give up the Permitha that was so easily obtained. The underworld's judge's black fog was originally very light, but it was also very fast. However, it was still not as fast as Xiao Hua. Seeing Xiao Hua getting further and further away, the underworld's judge coldly snorted and said with a smile, "The cultivators of the human realm really haven't seen the world. This kind of escape technique is admittedly incomparably marvelous, but in this official's eyes, it's not even worth shit." While speaking, a robe belt flew out from the black fog. It was precisely the robe of the underworld's judge from before. As soon as that robe belt flew out from the black fog, it immediately issued a sizzling sound, just like a drop of water falling into a pot of boiling oil. That endless yang qi quickly swallowed this robe belt. Qi. A strange roar came from the black fog. A gloomy brilliance flashed on the robe belt, and in a flash, it turned into a chain. That chain had some blood and rust spots on it, and green threads flashed inside. As soon as the chain was born, the entire night sky became several degrees colder. The chain flashed in midair, and disappeared in a flash. And in the distance, Xiao Hua, who had already flown several hundred li, suddenly slowed down. An aura that made his heart tremble with fear pounced on him without any warning. Xiao Hua knew that his divine sense was useless against ghosts. He hastily turned his head and saw a blood-colored chain flashing with a gloomy green brilliance. It was like a poisonous snake, and in the blink of an eye, it already flew to the back of his head. Xiao Hua made a prompt decision. A green light flashed between his eyebrows, and he used the lightning flash and thunder roll technique. Rumble. Lightning surged out like a tide and pounced on the chain. However, the chain was really like a flood dragon crossing the sea. With a slight sway, all the lightning was swept away by it. See, Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He wanted to use the Buddhist seal technique again, but just as this thought appeared in his mind, before that chain even reached his body, an invisible band like a tight hoop came from outside his mysterious dark cloud and tied it up in an instant. Rumble. At the same time that the mysterious dark cloud was tied up, the heavenly patterns on it flashed with a gloomy green lightning and desperately resisted. Inside the mysterious dark cloud, Xiao Hua also waved his hands. One after another, green seal characters flew out from the dark cloud, and the mournful cries of ghosts and gods were unceasingly heard. But in the end, these could not resist the imprisonment. What was more special was that when the chain fell down, it did not bind Xiao Hua's body, but directly tied up the mysterious dark cloud tightly. At the same time, from the other end of the chain came a powerful force that Xiao Hua could not resist, pulling Xiao Hua's mysterious dark cloud back. Although Xiao Hua possessed great magical abilities, had a strong body, and had an unparalleled lightning escape technique, under the binding of the ghost soul-capturing chain, he had no power to fight back. He could only obediently follow the force of the chain, flying back at a speed 30% faster than before. Furthermore, the force of the chain was extremely powerful, and it was the nemesis of souls. Xiao Hua's mysterious dark cloud was bound and deformed. Xiao Hua, who was a soul cultivator in the sky of heart, was bound tightly. Even Whitey, who was majestic and awe-inspiring in the blood ocean of the netherworld and the millions of Meng mountains, was currently suppressed by the force of the chain, unable to move at all. What was special was that a pain that was several times sharper than having one's bones scraped was produced from the point where the chain came into contact with the mysterious dark cloud, and it went straight into Xiao Hua's soul. This pain forced Xiao Hua to tumble in the air every few feet, and he kept roaring in a very sorry state. Naturally, the ghost judge would not expose himself to the yang energy, although the yang energy had weakened a lot because of the lunar eclipse. When he returned to the previous light hole, the domain formed by the death energy was already intact. Xiao Hua was rolling and roaring all the way, as if he was tortured to the point of exhaustion. When he was pulled into the dark domain, his roaring voice was somewhat hoarse. Looking at the anger in Xiao Hua's eyes, the ghost judge laughed and said, "Duamu Liangsheng, you're secretly happy. Fortunately, the one you met tonight is me. This is just a light punishment for your previous disrespect. If it was me, with just a stroke of the soul-capturing pin on the book of life and death, your lifespan would be completely gone, and your soul would be separated from your body. At that time, no matter how strong your cultivation base is, it would all turn into flowing water. You, what official of hell are you?" When Xiao Hua saw the ghost judge did not immediately take action, he quickly thought of something. Enduring the pain, he stood up and asked in a deep voice, "Of course I'm the ghost judge. Don't tell me you can't recognize me?" The ghost judge's figure had already turned into a malicious ghost. Although there was a kind of gentleness in his words, the fierceness on his face did not decrease in the slightest. This official's portrait is in countless paintings and paintings on the hidden immortal continent. -13. Chapter 38:58. Xiao Hua pinches his chin, pretending to look carefully. After a long while, he faintly shakes his head. The judge in the portrait is very fierce, far from your excellency's benevolence. This little one can't see it. Hee. Hearing this, the ghost judge unconsciously laughs. Fellow Taoist Duanmu is indeed interesting. Hee, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. At this time, how could Xiao Hua not know that this ghost judge has ulterior motives? He covers up the pain on his face, changes to a smiling face and cups his hands. This little one is just an ordinary person. How could I dare to make friends with an official of the underworld? Calling me Duanmu Liangsheng. This little one is already endlessly grateful. Good, good, good. The ghost judge laughs loudly. It's rare for your excellency to be so flexible. You're really a character. This official thinks that you'll become a literary star sooner or later. Your achievements will definitely be 100 times better than those 3 old, undying literary saints. That day, if those 3 old undying could get along with this official so harmoniously, how could their family line be cut off? Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart is moved, and he says curiously, "Official." This little one is somewhat puzzled. The decline of the Zhu family, Zheng family, and Sun family is obvious to all of the scholarly families of the hidden immortal continent. In the past, perhaps they were incomparably mighty, perhaps their power was monstrous, but now, compared to my Duanmu family, they're not even a little bit worse. When this little one came here to visit Zhu Cheng, I thought about this matter, but in the end, I didn't get anything. I don't know if this matter has any relation with official? Little friend Duanmu, could it be that you've forgotten what position this official has in the underworld? The ghost judge says proudly, even the way he addresses this official has changed. Xiao Hua's heart is moved. He suddenly thought of something. Then he exclaims with a kind of inconceivable tone, Could it be that this is all part of official's plan? Haha, of course it's this official. The ghost judge says with a smile. These 3 old undying suppressed this official here. They thought that this official would no longer have the power to fight back, and in the long run, this official would be killed by their Xiantian true qi. Unfortunately, they never imagined that not only did I have a way to deal with their wills, I also had a way that they were unable to touch. I control the life and death of all things in the world. In the face of life and death, all wealth and power are completely pale and powerless. Even immortals and Buddhas have to bow their heads. I only need to move the soul-hooking pin slightly and flip the life and death book slightly, and immediately countless Confucian disciples will serve me. It's hard to kill a literary sage, but to topple a scholarly family, that's really easy. Hiss. Xiao Hua didn't know if what this ghost judge said was true or not, but he still pretended to suck in a breath of cold air, cupped his hands and said, Official. You really are an official. He's 100 times more scheming than us. Duanmu Liangsheng really admires him. It doesn't matter. The ghost judge raised his hand and said, Little friend Duanmu and I didn't get to know each other until we fought. Hee, not to mention the immeasurable lifespan. I can even give you many benefits that you can't even imagine. Hee, official, what benefits can you give me? Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed into a slit as he asked with a smile. Unfortunately, the ghost judge's body moved a bit and said, Although I don't dare to say that I can give you everything, as long as you can use it in the hidden immortal continent, I can give it to you. Of course, you have to agree to my conditions first. Xiao Hua and the ghost judge talked nonsense for a long time. At this time, he knew that he couldn't delay any longer. Even if the lunar eclipse was going to end soon, the ghost judge would definitely not let him wait until that time. Not to mention that he was in the other party's domain. Whether or not the lunar eclipse would affect this domain was unknown. I wonder what official's conditions are? Xiao Hua probed. Paramitha. At this time, the ghost judge was actually somewhat stingy with his words. Oh, it's that willow branch. Xiao Hua said with a smile, Official, please wait a moment, I'll give it to you. Wait. Seeing that Xiao Hua was about to extend his hand, the ghost judge actually raised his misty hand and hastily said, Oh, what's the matter? Xiao Hua was slightly surprised and asked, Put Paramitha in the storage bag. Give me the storage bag. Io, what a coincidence. Xiao Hua touched his head and said very embarrassedly, I just finished using my Chinkuan bag. Little friend Wanmu is not honest. The ghost judge slightly smiled. The chain outside the mysterious dark cloud of Xiao Hua suddenly tightened. An indescribable pain came, causing Xiao Hua to be unable to help but cry out. Official, please spare me. Xiao Hua hastily begged for mercy. I just remembered. I just finished using my Chinkoin bag. I just happen to have a small Chinkoin bag. Please wait a moment. Saying this, Xiaohua hastily took out a Chinkoin bag from his bosom and handed it over to the ghost judge. That willow branch is inside. Do you want to take a look first? Now that's a good child. The ghost judge said with a smile. The black mist on his ferocious face was boiling. Official, can you loosen this chain a bit? Xiaohua stretched out his hand and then retracted it, begging, moreover. If I give the willow branch to official, and official doesn't let me go, what should I do? Hee hee, you humans have a saying, humans are meat on the chopping block. I'm meat on the chopping block. Little friend Wanmu, do you think you have a choice? The ghost judge laughed coldly, but Xiaohua was still hesitant. The Chinkoin bag in his hand expanded and contracted a few times, as if there really was a willow branch in the bag. The ghost judge was not in a hurry, only coldly looking at Xiaohua. When Xiaohua opened his mouth again, he said, I feel that something is wrong. It's not that I don't believe in official, but this so-called Paramitha is my last resort. There is no if or if, the ghost judge said coldly. I bet that you don't know what this Paramitha is. Otherwise, you definitely wouldn't casually use it here. I don't know how you can use this Paramitha, but I can be sure that if this item is in your hands, sooner or later you will die because of it. In other words, if you don't give this item to me, you will soon fall into my soul-hooking pin. Official, can you dispel my doubts? Xiaohua's face revealed a shocked expression. Hee hee, this Paramitha is no longer little friends. Little friend doesn't need to inquire anymore. The ghost judge said with a smile, if you can cultivate to the literary star realm, perhaps you can obtain some information about this item. A pained expression immediately appeared on Xiaohua's face. However, immediately after, Xiaohua screamed again. He hurriedly waved his hand, and the Chinkoin bag flew towards the ghost judge. Sir, spare me, humph. The ghost judge stared at Xiaohua's hands and coldly snorted. He calmly waited for the Chinkoin bag to fly closer. That perfectly straight chain connected to the black fog slightly trembled, as if there was any abnormal movement, the chain could be activated at any time. What's special is that around Xiaohua's surroundings, strands of black fog faintly appeared, as if the entire domain's attention was focused on this place. Xiaohua's hands were placed in front of him, not daring to move. His eyes were also looking at the Chinkoin bag. When the Chinkoin bag neared the ghost judge, a large hand stretched out from the black fog and pulled the Chinkoin bag into the black fog. Only then did the tense atmosphere in the entire domain slightly relaxed. Official. Xiaohua still didn't dare to move and opened his mouth. However, just as Xiaohua said those two words, without waiting for the ghost judge to reply, the sound of wind flashed in his right hand and Paramitha suddenly appeared. At the same time Paramitha appeared, Xiaohua's right hand suddenly waved. A tin-colored rainbow broke through all the restrictions of the domain and hit the ghost judge's black fog in the blink of an eye. A blood-curdling scream, followed by a zzzzz, a strong impact sound. Outside the black fog formed by the ghost judge, the underworld official's robe emitted a black lightning-like light. The entire official's robe turned into several strands of ashes and slowly fell down. In the ashes, the black fog flashed and disappeared. The rainbow bridge actually missed. This is bad. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. His heavenly vision hastily looked around. The Paramitha in his hand wanted to chase and attack again. However, he raised his hand again and again. This time, he was really exhausted. That willow branch didn't even move a bit. Damn it, damn it, damn it. The black shadow swayed again and angrily cursed. It was unknown where it came from, but it was still coiled in the air. However, at this time, the black fog was once again reduced by 30%. The rainbow bridge from before was admittedly missed because of the ghost judge's teleportation. However, just by the rainbow bridge passing through the domain, 30% of the black fog was already wiped out. If Xiaohua could use the rainbow bridge to hit the black fog, he would probably be able to kill the ghost judge. Damn it, Xiaohua muttered at the same time as the ghost magistrate. He was a little regretful. If he had used the Permitha for the last time when the three saints of literature were suppressing the ghost, he might have been able to kill it. Pooh! After the ghost judge angrily cursed, an incomparably sharp gold chi suddenly appeared somewhere in the black fog. Like a sharp sword, it madly rushed towards Xiaohua. Seeing this incomparably pure gold chi directly stabbing into his heart, Xiaohua understood that the ghost judge had already given birth to a killing intent. He hurriedly released his divine sense to retrieve the willow branch. At the same time, he used the ethereal steps and his figure rapidly flashed. Boom! The gold chi slightly tilted and hit Xiaohua's left shoulder. As soon as the gold chi entered Xiaohua's body, a large hole was actually pierced through by this gold chi. Xiaohua was greatly shocked. Not only was it because of the sharp pain on his left shoulder, but more importantly, it was because he sensed a dense aura of heaven-earth origin chi from this gold chi. This ghost can also control heaven-earth origin chi? However, he didn't have time to think too much. The chain floating in the air rapidly shook and turned into a poisonous snake that pounced towards his mysterious dark cloud. The chain that was originally entwined with the dark cloud turned into a sawtooth shape and pounced towards Xiaohua's soul, wanting to tear it into pieces in an instant. -13. Chapter 38:59. Roar. Xiaohua endured the pain, roared and shouted, "Where is Confucian, fellow Taoist? Fellow Taoist, don't panic, I am here." Four-colored true chi gushed out from the top of Xiaohua's head. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua flew out on his sword, promised, and waved the imperial star stab in his hand. A stream of light flashed in the air, stirring up 10,000 layers of vast chi waves, and immediately pierced into the black fog. Hiss! Hearing that the ghost judge was in pain, Confucian cultivator Xiaohua didn't hesitate. He opened his mouth, and the 5 chi thunder flew out, about to hit the ghost judge. Unfortunately, before the 5 chi righteous thunder could descend, the black gas within the domain flashed, and all of the lightning completely disappeared. Even the vast airwaves brought about by the star control spike also disappeared. When Confucian cultivator Xiaohua made his move, Xiaohua formed a seal with both hands, and the power of mountains fell towards the ghost judge. Buddhist seal? The ghost judge was slightly taken aback. Black gas flashed within the domain once again. However, although the black gas was tumbling, the Buddhist seal was still unable to be completely wiped out. 70% of the mountain's power still landed on the ghost judge. Swish! In the black fog, the strange golden chi rushed out again. Boom! With a loud sound, the power of mountains was split open. Of course, some of the Buddhist light in the power of mountains still fell on the ghost judge's body, and as if it was scalded by boiling water, the ghost judge's black fog tumbled violently, as if it was heavily injured. What a pity! Seeing this, Xiaohua sighed in his heart. If Buddha Subhuti was here, it would be a lot easier. It seems that at the last moment, I still have to wake Buddha Subhuti up. Looking at the ghost judge again, he saw that Xiaohua actually knew Buddhist techniques. Although he didn't suffer any serious injuries, he still couldn't help but become angry and shouted, "Damn it, damn it, damn it. Duanmu Liangsheng, since you want to die, this official will help you. Although it's a bit troublesome to get the Permitha from your corpse, but what's going on?" Not waiting for the ghost judge to finish speaking, the chain that was still in the air suddenly trembled, almost breaking out of his control. Without hesitation, the ghost judge controlled the black fog to fall on the chains. Then, several golden lights once again rushed out from the black fog, separately piercing into Xiaohua's golden body. Under this attack, Xiaohua's body was once again torn open with several wounds. Although the ghost judge, and the ghost weapon, the heavenly Tuzas, and the earth, the heavenly roar. The little white dragon roared in anger, but no matter how he struggled, he couldn't break free from the ghost judge's control. The ghost judge's was the ghost judge's and soul cultivator Xiaohua's nemesis. Puff puff. Soul cultivator Xiaohua couldn't break free of this shackles, but with a push of his hands, the shaman codex fell below him. Countless green seal characters rushed up from the Shaman Codex, and Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua's body suddenly exploded, turning into fist-sized green seal characters. These green seal characters let out an earth-shattering sound, like a giant moving a mountain or a giant chasing the sun. Pung pung pong. Amidst this sound, the underworld fruit that had fallen into the dark cloud earlier suddenly flew out and fell into the green seal characters. Woo woo. Like a river overturning the sea, an illusion of the underworld fruit unexpectedly appeared in the dark cloud. Xiao Hua clenched his teeth and held on. The golden light pierced his body full of holes, and the chains were about to tear his soul apart. But at this moment, the soul cultivator Xiao Hua's movement gave him a stroke of luck. Scholar Xiao Hua had fallen into the bottleneck of the heavenly heart realm and couldn't enter the heavenly soul realm for a long time. He couldn't step into the heavenly soul realm from the soul warrior realm, so Xiao Hua had always felt that he was missing an opportunity. But when he saw the illusion of the underworld fruit, and then thought of the underworld fruits helped the soul cultivator, and the ghost judge's method of attacking souls, how could Xiao Hua not understand that if he wanted to enter the heavenly soul realm with his soul cultivation method, he would have to rely on the netherworld chi or the blood seawater? Xiao Hua understood, and so did the soul cultivator Xiao Hua. The two characters Netherworld and Netherworld flew out from the Magus Codex and fell into the green seal characters that Xiao Hua had transformed into. Two earth-shattering sounds resonated in the entire mysterious dark cloud. Along with these sounds, the soul cultivator Xiao Hua's body slowly came out again. At the same time, Xiao Hua's spirit seized this opportunity to draw the blood sea water from the inside of the space. He wanted to communicate with the netherworld blue sky in the mysterious dark cloud. But before he could draw the blood sea water from the inside of the space, Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and the blood sea water fell into his body out of thin air. The sea of blood rushed into Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua's body. Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua's body flickered continuously, and the invisible barrier that was blocking the sky of heart suddenly disappeared. A powerful suction force was generated from the sky of soul formation, forcibly pulling Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua into the sky of soul formation. When Xiao Hua entered the heavenly soul realm, the two characters Netherworld and Netherworld immediately flashed with green light, and an indescribable wave was generated from the inside of the space and fell into Xiao Hua's hand. As Xiao Hua's hands danced, his body flashed and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already outside the mysterious dark cloud. Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua came out of the mysterious dark cloud. Without saying anything, he waved his hands and grabbed the chain that he didn't even dare to touch before. Immediately, a tremendous force was transmitted from his hands, and the chain shook violently. Not only did the sawteeth disappear, the chain also gradually turned into a belt and fell towards Xiao Hua's hand. The ghost judge sensed the tremendous force transmitted from the soul-capturing chain and couldn't help but be shocked. This is the Netherworld's origin power? How can you have the Netherworld's origin power? Not only this. Today, this young master will show you the power of my Duanmu family. Xiao Hua's soul was almost scattered, but he still remembered to frame Duanmu Liangsheng. When his malevolent face appeared, he shouted loudly, "Suppress! Wu!" But inside the dark domain, a vast and unparalleled qi rushed out from Xiao Hua's mouth, and 6 cauldron-like objects flew out with the power to suppress everything. 9 cauldrons? The ghost judge was completely dumbfounded. He almost didn't think, and even abandoned the soul-capturing chain. The black fog flashed, and he teleported into the light hole. Kaka, at this time, you still want to escape from my Duanmu family? The green-robed Xiao Hua's voice came from who knows where, and a layer of 2-colored spirit fire spread out in a net in front of the light hole. You? The ghost judge was shocked by the green-robed Xiao Hua. He didn't think that there would be an invisible thing in his domain that he didn't know about. However, there was no time for him to think too much at this moment. Xiao Hua used all of his methods. Just this spiritual fire touched his black fog, and the black fog quickly melted away, scaring the ghost magistrate into spitting out several streams of golden qi in succession to extinguish this spiritual fire. But just as he was about to use the golden qi to extinguish the spirit fire, Wong wong. With a rumbling sound, the 6 cauldrons released a suppressive power that the ghost judge couldn't resist and firmly trapped him in the air. 9 cauldrons shake fate, 6 cauldrons calm the world. Xiao Hua said coldly, "A ghost dares to slander my Duanmu family. You really deserve to die." When did your Duanmu family have 6 cauldrons? The ghost judge could no longer form a ghost, and could only turn into black fog and float in the air. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes as he watched the 6 cauldrons release an overwhelming aura to suppress the ghost, and his heart finally relaxed. Although he didn't know how to use the 6 cauldrons, he was used to using the innate divine restriction, and controlling the 6 cauldrons to form a suppressive force wasn't difficult. Looking at the ugly state of the ghost, he laughed coldly and said, "Zhu Zi, Zheng Zi, and Sun Zi, the 3 saints' wooden statues could suppress you. My Duanmu family's 6 cauldrons can naturally suppress you. I still need to use these 6 cauldrons to refine you." Haha. The ghost judge didn't know if he was bluffing or had other tricks up his sleeve, but he laughed loudly and said, "Duanmu Liangsheng, you really overestimate yourself. If this official wasn't injured by the 3 saints, if this official wasn't ambushed by your Permitha, even if you used these 6 cauldrons, you still wouldn't be able to suppress this official. As for refining this official, don't worry about it. This official should have cultivated to the point of turning from yin to yang. Other than your Permitha, it's impossible for you to kill this official." Of course, Xiao Hua didn't know how to use the 6 cauldrons to refine the ghost, but he laughed coldly. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's 5 chi righteous thunder fell and hit the ghost judge's body. Sure enough, within the black fog, there was a faint golden light flashing, and the black fog didn't seem to reduce as it rolled. Haha. The ghost judge laughed coldly, and golden aura flew out from the rolling black fog. Not only did it rush into the 5 chi righteous thunder, it even hit the 6 cauldrons. The 5 chi righteous thunder was actually scattered, and the 6 cauldrons were hit to the point that they were on the verge of collapsing. However, fortunately, the 6 cauldrons weren't comparable to the 3 saints' wooden statues, and after a series of loud sounds, they didn't suffer any damage. What's more, what was suppressing the ghost judge was the fortune and overwhelming aura of the 6 cauldrons. These things weren't something that the golden aura could defeat, so although Xiao Hua was in a sorry state, the ghost judge couldn't escape from the suppression. "It's hard to use Permitha now. Perhaps I can only wait until daybreak?" Xiao Hua bit his lips, looking at the somewhat scattered 6 cauldrons and the complacent black fog, and secretly pondered, "Perhaps I can only use the demonic blade? Perhaps I can let Buddha Subhoodie come out of seclusion? Damn it! What exactly is the golden aura inside the ghost judge's body?" Xiao Hua naturally knew that the demonic blade would damage his mind, so he wouldn't use it easily, and Buddha Subhoodie seclusion was also extremely crucial, but now that things had come to this, he had no other choice. Thinking, the demonic aura on Xiao Hua's left arm slightly swelled. Roar. At this time, the roar of a wandering ghost came from afar, causing Xiao Hua's heart to move, and his gaze fell on the faint fog below the 6 cauldrons. Collect. Xiao Hua's eyes slightly narrowed, and his mind felt as if a pair of large hands were falling on the ghost judge. The novel The Story of the Cultivation God will have even more fresh content on the official WeChat platform, and at the same time, there will be a 100% lottery gift for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign at the top right to add friend, search for the public account, Dread, and follow it. Hurry up. -13. Chapter 3860. Ha 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 ha. Duanmu Yangxing, this official really admires you. You are really indulging in fantasy. The ghost judge mocks. Although this official is a ghost, this official is not something that a Confucian cultivator like you can capture. Io, not good, this. The ghost judge is naturally not like those ownerless wandering souls. As long as he struggles, Xiao Hua's mind will not easily capture him into the inside of the space. Not to mention that this ghost judge's strength far surpasses Xiao Hua's. However, contrary to the judge of ghost and Xiao Hua's expectations, wherever Xiao Hua's mind passed, the judge of ghost's fog, which had not moved in the slightest, as steady as a boulder, began to slowly move towards Xiao Hua. Although the fog was struggling with all its might, it was as if there was a string pulling it, and it began to move faster and faster. Wrong. Xiao Hua suddenly feels that the fog's movement is not being pulled by his mind. Instead, he feels that the fog is taking the initiative to rush into his space. In an instant, Xiao Hua's heart is startled. This is not the ghost judge's scheme? Thinking of this, how can Xiao Hua still dare to capture this fog? He hastily retreats, preparing to dodge. But in the blink of an eye, the ghost judge suddenly accelerates, not allowing Xiao Hua to withdraw his mind, and like lightning, rushes into Xiao Hua's space. Xiao Hua is greatly alarmed. His body is already riddled with scars, and now his heart is as cold as ice. The ghost judge also lets out a heart-wrenching scream, looking even more desperate than Xiao Hua. The instant the black fog rushed into Xiao Hua's body, Xiao Hua's heart truly died like ashes. After scheming for so long, he still fell into the scheme of the ghost judge. However, he still wanted to fight to the death. He desperately pulled the black fog and flew towards his own space. He understood very well that as long as he fell into his space, any ghost or judge would be at his mercy. However, Xiao Hua didn't think that the ghost judge would give him this opportunity. However, the strange thing was that the black fog didn't resist at all. Under the tremendous force of his mind, the black fog immediately crashed into the inside of Xiao Hua's space. What made Jade Archive Xiao Hua even more shocked was that the moment the black fog fell into the inside of the space, a formless golden fell out of the black fog. The black fog was like a piece of clothing. After stripping it off, Xiao Hua could see its curvaceous body. An extremely familiar feeling came from that golden point. Gold origin. Xiao Hua suddenly realized. Without any hesitation, he immediately used the Big Dipper God Fist in midair. The metal origin changed direction and rushed into Xiao Hua's bones. After the bones were tempered, there were naturally meridians, spiritual fire, and so on. Xiao Hua was in pain, but he was also enjoying the joy of advancing. The metal origin, the thing that Xiao Hua yearned for even in his dreams. Now, it actually appeared in the clone of an underworld judge. It really made Xiao Hua surprised. Very surprised. However, when the metal origin rushed into the space, waves of origin fluctuations spread throughout the entire space. Waves of mountain roars and tsunami waves were produced in the space. Layers of starry sky rippled in Xiao Hua's heart. Xiao Hua already understood the ins and outs of the matter. This metal origin was the origin of the world. Even the ghosts of the underworld should be able to use it. Therefore, when the clone of the underworld judge came out of the underworld, it was discovered by Zhu Zi, Zheng Zi, and Sun Zi for some unknown reason. The three literary sages naturally didn't allow the ghosts of the underworld to harass the hidden immortal continent. Therefore, a battle broke out. In the end, although the three literary sages suppressed the ghost, they couldn't completely eliminate it. In the end, the three literary sages could only leave behind wooden statues and wills, and even their own children to complete the heavy task of suppressing the ghost. Of course, when the wills of the three literary sages joined hands, they were able to eliminate 70% of the underworld judge's ghost. The reason why they couldn't completely eliminate the ghost back then was definitely because of the metal origin. However, today, the ghost body gradually formed, and it also had some success in refining the metal origin. It was preparing to break out of the restriction when the heavenly dog eclipse of the moon was at its densest. Of course, this ghost plan was extremely successful. The ghost formation of the 9 underworlds origin drove the netherworld chi and wandering souls to destroy the underworld judge's body. The metal origin of the fire origin destroyed the wooden statues and wills of the three literary sages. If the underworld judge could stop at this moment and return in time, Xiao Hua definitely wouldn't have stopped it. In fact, Xiao Hua wouldn't have been able to stop it. However, the underworld judge's greed didn't change. After obtaining the metal origin, it still coveted the Permitha. It didn't care that it only had 30% of its strength left, and wanted to use its domain and ghost tool to obtain the Permitha. However, it just so happened that it encountered Xiao Hua, a Taoist cultivator who wasn't a Confucian cultivator like Duomu Liangshan. It absolutely couldn't imagine how complex and profound Xiaohua's knowledge was. It also didn't think that Xiaohua would have a space that others definitely wouldn't have. Of course, what the underworld judge didn't expect the most was that Xiaohua's space already had the fire origin and earth origin. Under the influence of the two origin powers, the metal origin in its body was no longer under its control. It took the initiative to enter Xiaohua's space. By the time it realized that something was wrong, it was already unable to escape its fate. At this time, it was already unable to separate the metal origin from its body. It was said that success was due to Xiao He and defeat was due to Xiao He. It was nothing more than this. It was destroyed by the metal origin that it obtained and involuntarily fell into the inside of Xiao Hua's space. Even if its strength was exceedingly high, once it fell into the inside of the space, wasn't it still up to Xiao Hua's words? After an unknown amount of time, Xiao Hua collected the metal origin. After thinking through all the causes and effects, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly. However, at this time, he couldn't afford to slack off. Just as he was fighting a life and death battle with the underworld judge, the 9 ghost caves were still erupting endlessly. There was still an endless stream of wandering souls rushing out. However, there was a faint outline of the pitch-black blood moon in the night sky. The lunar eclipse seemed to be coming to an end. Let the test come a little more fiercely. Xiao Hua laughed loudly and unconsciously raised his head to let out a long roar. The wounds that were pierced by the metal origin were previously difficult to heal. However, after Xiao Hua used the metal origin to temper his body, these wounds had already healed. Xiao Hua had gotten rid of the great enemy in his heart, and his entire body was relaxed. He raised his eyes to look at the outline of the blood moon and released his consciousness. Now that he had the underworld's Yuan Qi in his mind, it was even easier to collect the netherworld Qi and wandering souls that were spewing out. The ghost Qi that was spewing out from the 9 ghost caves, the wandering souls that surged out, and even the stranger things that came later, didn't even touch the ground before they were immediately collected by Xiao Hua into the inside of the space. They didn't cause any damage to Wuyuan County, Jingyue County, and Fancheng County. After a long time, the blood-red moonlight gradually appeared, and the yang qi overflowed again. Xiao Hua's body could feel the obvious Taiyin qi, and among the 9 ghost caves, 3 of them glowed with Buddha light and Aoran qi. Gradually, the qi of the netherworld was retracted, and the wandering souls started to decrease. Another hour passed, and the sky suddenly became pitch black. This darkness was not as dark as the underworld judges, but the temperature of the night sky didn't drop. Xiao Hua understood that this was the darkness before dawn. The night of the 15th of July finally passed. The wandering souls no longer appeared, and the other 6 ghost caves no longer spewed out netherworld qi. Even if the 3 ghost caves still had some ghost qi, it was nothing under the yang qi. Fellow Taoist Green Robe, Xiao Hua was really tired. He collected his consciousness and flew down to the undulating mountain range below him. He raised his voice and asked, Wuyuan County, Jingyue County, and Fancheng County can be put away. I wonder how the lives of the millions of villagers in these 3 towns are? Green-robed Xiao Hua didn't answer, but in the night sky, rays of light appeared one after another, and layers of formations rippled. After a few moments, green-robed Xiao Hua landed beside Xiao Hua with the Kunlun mirror in his hand. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the town in the dark night. At this time, the town was so quiet, and there wasn't a trace of sound. The candles that could be seen at night, at this time, it was an extravagant hope. Fellow Taoist, Green-robed Xiao Hua said in a low voice, if I guessed correctly, more than 300,000 villagers died. Those souls were sucked into your space along with the netherworld energy. Hiss, more than 300,000? Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air and said involuntarily, how could there be so many? There aren't many left. Green-robed Xiao Hua sighed. Wuyuan County, Jingyue County, and Fancheng County, these 3 towns have about 1 million people. These people are just like what Zhu Cheng said. They are already on the verge of death. Even if tonight's 100 Ghost Parade didn't happen, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to live for long. Moreover, the ghost that appeared tonight is the underworld's judge. This guy's death chi is really powerful. Once a mortal comes into contact with this death chi, their soul will immediately leave their body. This is also because fellow Taoist asked I to set up a large array in these towns in advance. If it wasn't for this array, not to mention 300,000 people, even 1,000,000 people wouldn't be able to escape tonight's massacre. Coo coo coo. All of a sudden, the lonely sound of a rooster crowing rang out from nowhere, breaking the silence of the night. This sound was exceptionally loud in the night sky, and at the same time, it was exceptionally warm. I bet. Green Robe Xiao Hua said with a smile, this rooster won't live past today. If someone eats him, then it's good. Xiao Hua said meaningfully, just like you and me, even if we have to sacrifice some, it will be worth it if we can save some people. Fine, fine. The one who will be sacrificed is not you. Green Robe Xiao Hua waved his hand that Xiao Hua couldn't see and said, quickly let I go back. There are a lot of disciples waiting at home. Hee hee. I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua smiled and stored the formless nascent soul into his lower dantian. These several 100,000 merit points have already landed on fellow Taoist's head. That's right, fellow Taoist. The light hole that the ghost judge came out of disappeared after fellow Taoist collected that guy. Since the 3 literary sages' wooden statues fell inside, I'm afraid there's something fishy about it. Green Robe Xiao Hua, who was as greedy as Xiao Hua, didn't forget to tell Xiao Hua before entering the space. The novel The Story of the Cultivation God will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there's also a 100% chance of a lottery gift for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign at the top right to add friend, search for the public account, dread, and follow. Hurry up. -13. Chapter 3861. How could Xiao Hua not know what the green-robed Xiao Hua was thinking? So he laughed and said, rest assured, green-robed fellow Taoist, even if you didn't say it, the scholarly fellow Taoist would be worried. That wooden statue had the will of the literary sage, so it should contain the secrets of the scholarly cultivators. Moreover, Sage Zhu Shi's message clearly stated that the wooden statue of the ancestral shrine is of the Xiantian realm, and the clan records are of the later generations. The ancestral shrines of the Zhu, Zhang, and Sun families have long disappeared. If I'm not mistaken, they should be in this light cave. Alas, suppressing the underworld's magistrate in the ancestral shrine, this is really unimaginable. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, how could I believe it? Xiao Hua smiled and landed on the ground. This was a dilapidated temple. The previous battle had already torn down this small temple beyond recognition, leaving only rubble at the foot of the mountain. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and his brows unconsciously wrinkled because there was no trace of the ancestral shrine in his divine sense. The light cave from before had disappeared without a trace, as if it didn't exist at all. What do you think, fellow Taoist? Xiao Hua released the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua sensed for a moment and shook his head. Previously, there was a strong righteous qi on the wooden statue, but now I can't sense it at all. I'm afraid the 3 literary sages did something. Yes, there must be a restriction. Xiao Hua nodded. Otherwise, it would be impossible to suppress the ghost, and it would be impossible to hide from those who persecuted the Zhu, Zhang, and Sun families. Since there is a restriction, it should be related to the Buddhist sect. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I'll entrust my happiness to you, fellow Taoist. After saying that, Xiao Hua returned to his middle dantian. Xiao Hua used the Heaven's Eye again and used the escape technique to escape underground. Knowing that the ancestral shrines of the 3 families were definitely here, Xiao Hua carefully searched the area. Even though he had the Heaven's Eye ability, it still took him the time to eat a meal before he found a strange little, in the depths of the ground, as if he was looking for a needle in a haystack. There was a tiny bit of psyche power and a wisp of noble spirit on it, but it was really insignificant in the underground. Seeing such a small dot, Xiao Hua understood that this was the Shumi Buddhist formation of the Buddhist sect. He pinched his chin and looked at the motionless, that didn't even flicker with a faint radiance. He thought to himself, with my cultivation base, breaking this Shumi Buddhist formation isn't too difficult. However, The problem was that if he was not careful, he might destroy the ancestral hall inside. This was disrespect to Zhu Zi, Zheng Zi, and Sun Zi, the three sages of literature. Moreover, how could the Buddhist formation that the three sages of literature had set up together to suppress the ghostly magistrate be so easy to break? The chances of being careless were higher. If I want to obtain the true heavenly book insight, I'm afraid I can't be so reckless. The ancestral tree is like the innate qi, and the family tree is made of silk and silk. The first sentence clearly meant that there was Xiantian true qi in the wooden statue of the ancestral shrine. However, this Xiantian true qi, what was the use of it? Did it have anything to do with the heavenly book? Could it be that the true enlightenment of the heavenly books was this innate true qi? As for the second sentence, did it mean that there was silk and silk hidden in the family tree? The silk and silk contained the family tree of the younger generation? Silk and silk? Family tree? Or perhaps, thinking of this, Xiao Hua's eyes suddenly lit up. Almost in disbelief, he took out the book that he had obtained from the old woman of the Zhu family in Jinghua City from the space. This book was originally made of silk, and it corresponded to the so-called family tree silk and silk. However, there was no family tree written in it. When the book made of silk and silk was taken out of the space, it immediately flashed with a faint Buddhist light. Similarly, the small d also flashed with the same rhythm of Buddhist light. They attracted each other, and the silk and silk flew towards the small dot. Great! Xiao Hua clapped his hands and praised from the bottom of his heart, immortal grass with others, leaving fragrance in my hand. At that time, my cultivation base was low, and I didn't think about the heavenly book insight. However, because of a moment of kindness, I broke the curse of the old woman of the Zhu family and obtained this silk and silk. I really didn't expect that I would be able to use it today. And after so many years, the family of the old woman of the Zhu family in Jinghua City should have already turned into yellow soil. Just when Xiao Hua's heart was filled with joy, the book gradually unfolded and turned into a cloud-like silk and covered the small dot. However, after covering it, no matter if it was the silk or the dot, there was no movement at all. No, it seems that something else is missing. Xiao Hua looked at everything in front of him and secretly calculated in his heart. Yes, this is silk and silk. There should be a family tree, and even there should be descendants. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "It seems that the task of opening the ancestral shrine will fall on the heads of Zhu Cheng and the other Confucian family descendants." Thinking of this, Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and collected the silk and turned it into the book again and put it into the space. Then, he escaped from the ground and rushed into the air. At this time, dawn was breaking in the east and a fresh breath filled the entire sky. Although there was no trace of green beyond the three towns, the faint vitality after the wind and rain was already in sight. Cough, cough. This was the sound of the old woman coughing weakly in the morning. Creak. This was the sound of the woman gently pushing open the wooden door. Although this sound was accompanied by the woman's slight sigh and even grief, it was still the sound of life. Woo-woo. Even more were the sounds of people crying after discovering that their family members had died. The grief of the living was the remembrance of the dead. There were also many sounds that were born at dawn. These sounds fell into Xiao Hua's ears one by one. Among them, there was joy, sorrow, worry, and worry. No matter what kind of emotion the sound was, it made Xiao Hua feel a sense of joy. It made him feel that last night's life and death battle was worth it, that last night's life and death situation was meaningful. When Xiao Hua's figure flew to the sky above Zhujia village, under the bright sunlight, Zhujia village was actually a field of silence. Not even a single person's shadow could be seen. Xiao Hua's soul sense swept over and immediately understood. As the saying goes, the ignorant are fearless. The people in the three towns didn't know what happened. They didn't know that last night they had already experienced a life and death situation that they had never seen before. Therefore, they woke up early in the morning as usual and prepared to find food to eat. They prepared to struggle through the next day. Everyone in Zhujia village knew of the dangers of the night, so no one dared to rashly come out. Zhujia village's restriction was still open as they quietly waited for Xiao Hua's message. Dang, dang, dang. Xiao Hua's mood was extremely good. He laughed and asked loudly. Confucius said, "A friend from afar is coming. Isn't it also good?" Xiao, Taoist Xiao? You've returned? An unusually surprised voice came from within Zhujia village. Immediately after, a young man stepped on a cloud and rushed into the air. Zhu Xiang? Seeing this young man's appearance, Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. However, in an instant, Xiao Hua understood something. He cupped his hands and said, "Congratulations, fellow Taoist Jew." This person was naturally Zhu Cheng, who had already taken the rejuvenation pill. He looked extremely similar to the dead Zhu Xiang. Seeing Xiao Hua cupped his hands, Zhu Cheng hurriedly bowed in return and said, "AI, this one still has to thank Benefactor. If it wasn't for Benefactor, how could this one be like this?" Taoist Xiao. While speaking, the group of Zhujia village disciples all flew into the air and followed behind Zhu Cheng. They bowed and said, "Many thanks to Benefactor for saving our Zhujia village disciples again. No need to thank me, no need to thank me." Xiao Hua helped everyone up and was about to speak again when he suddenly felt that something was wrong. When he looked at everyone, he saw that everyone's eyes were filled with a kind of burning desire. Xiao Hua immediately understood. He hurriedly waved his hands and said, "Fellow Taoists, the rejuvenation pill that this one gave to fellow Taoist Jew was something this one obtained by chance during an auction. This one also thought that it was a simple pill and didn't pay much attention to it. Who would have thought that fellow Taoist Jew would actually become so young? This is really unexpected." That's right, it was really unexpected. This was the inner voice of all the Zhujia village disciples. In just one night, all the Zhujia village disciples saw with their own eyes the head of the Zhujia village, who was on the verge of death, turn from old to young bit by bit. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they would definitely think that Zhu Cheng was Zhu Xiang reborn. Xiao Hua's words were obviously perfunctory. At least he didn't show that kind of unexpected surprise. Obviously, he knew the effects of this rejuvenation pill. However, since Xiao Hua didn't say anything, everyone couldn't say anything either. They could only stand up with some regret. "Benefactor," Zhu Cheng said in a low voice, "how is it? Everything is already in the past." Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Moreover, your Zhu family, Zheng family, and Sun family don't need to guard the ghost cave anymore." Really? Zhu Cheng was overjoyed. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and replied cautiously, "This one thinks so, but this one can't guarantee it. If it's possible, you three families should guard this place for a period of time. Of course, this one thinks that there's no need to use your life to strengthen the seal." That's good. Zhu Cheng immediately thought of Zhu Xiang and couldn't help but shed tears. After a moment, Zhu Cheng came to his senses and hurriedly said with a smile, "Benefactor, please come with me. This one doesn't know how to thank you." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "The great calamity has just passed. Within the 3 towns, more than 300,000 people died. If the remaining people don't have food to fill their stomachs, they might not be able to survive tonight. Although Fengxiang country has food for disaster relief, it might not be able to come in the next few days. Fellow immortal Zhu, disaster relief is the most important thing today." Yes, this one understands," Zhu Cheng hurriedly said. "This one has already arranged everything last night. My Zhu family has a very good relationship with the government of the 3 towns. This one will send Zhu family disciples to Jingyue County and Fancheng County. This one will personally go to Wuyuan County. If Benefactor has time, you might as well go with this one. This time, this one will definitely spread Benefactor's name everywhere." "That's not appropriate." Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and said, "This one is a Dao sect cultivator. If my reputation is too great, it will definitely attract the attention of the Immortal Palace. So it's like this." Zhu Cheng thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Benefactor, you're thinking too much. Benefactor, at this time, not only should you not hide your cultivation and merit, you should also expand your reputation. Especially this kind of merit of saving people, it should be even more publicized. The novel The Legend of the Cultivation God will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% chance of drawing a big prize for everyone. Now open WeChat, click the plus sign at the top right to add friend, search for the public account, dread, and follow it. Hurry up. -13.